This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, good morning, and welcome to an overcast and windy Sabi Sands private game reserve. Of course, in case you hadn't noticed, that's a lion lying in the road. Good morning, my name is Brent Smith. I have Sebastian Rombi on camera with me, and we have two members of the Nkuhuma Pride. We're not sure where the rest are. They have not moved far from where we found them after drive last night, and that was on quarantine. But there they are, halfway to the gate. Sorry, Herbie is calling me on the radio a lot, so I'm going to answer him. Yeah, Herbie, two members of the Nkuhuma's Vuyatela access about 150 meters to the east of Aubrey's Road. Okay, so I'm not sure where the rest of the pride are. They could be lying not too far away from the tracks, or the whole pride came up this way. But we spotted these lions at a distance. They were both lying in the road, and then, oh, is it a big pile of elephant dung, or is it a lion? Well, luckily, it was a lion, because if it was a big pile of elephant dung, we probably wouldn't started the show here. Remember, hashtag SafariLive on Twitter if you want to send any questions. And you can also send your questions through on the YouTube feed. Now, it looks like they had an unsuccessful evening when it comes to hunting. Their bellies are still empty. So there's a chance they might get up and on the move this morning. And I'm just wondering, as I said, where... Ah, there we go. See. Start looking carefully. Lions start popping out of everywhere. There's another, at least one, two. Is that a mangan? No. No. So, as I said, you look carefully and lions start popping out. There's more than likely not only going to be two members of the pride here. Now, the full pride hasn't been together for some time. There's at least three. There's another one. I can see a belly through the trees there as well. It is a mangan. He's looking much better. Still very noticeable missing tip to the tail. Well, the tail tip's not missing. The tuft is missing. The hair has fallen out. I wonder what their plans are. Well, we've got one up. One to the right, so up and might do a move. Let's have a look what it looks like she's going to do. She's testing the air, sniffing a little bit. But while we wait to see what the Nkuhumas get up to next, let us go to Commander Bond, who is on foot this morning.
Good morning. I am on foot today, trying to avoid anything that might want to do me any form of harm. My name is James, and on camera today we've got John Dree. There he is. And we are going to do our level best to find you some interesting creatures today. Unfortunately, the day has dawned rather blustery and foul, and I'm not sure that we can do anything about that, but perhaps there will be something worth looking at a little bit later. There were lions around here. Brent's only got 2 of the 6 that were around here yesterday, so maybe we'll find the others. Perhaps we'll stumble upon the little chief or one of our other leopards, and maybe we'll just walk around in the wind for 3 hours. Who knows what the morning will bring. Please talk to us using the hashtag SafariLive or the chat stream on YouTube. It would be wonderful to hear from you. Thank you very much. Good. Excellent. Now, let's see what else we can show you to start with. I would like to show you the greening. Do you see, Jean-André, the greening? There's some green there. Now, this is a result of 2 decent rainstorms that we've had now. And if we take a closer look at the greening, behold, from the dry, dusty ground has sprouted green. And it is always amazing to me the depth and extent of the seed bed that there is over here. All around here there are seeds dormant, waiting just for a little bit of water, a small drink before they will sprout out of the ground. And despite the fact that this place always looks like an overgrown dust bowl come this time of the year, it is amazing how just a little bit of water in the surface layer of the soil will create a flush of abundance in the seed bed. Not much to listen to this morning because it is a bit windy. It's an odd wind because it's coming, sorry, I'm just turning my back to feel it, from the southwest, which is not a common wind here. It's normally southwest or southeast or northwest, but now we've got a southwesterly breeze. Very strange. Now, we do not have a sunrise today, unfortunately, but Tristan, who is all the way in the Masai Mara, apparently is watching the sun come up, and I'm sure he'll find some animals soon.
Indeed we do, James. So while you guys have got blustery, cool conditions with overcast clouds, we have got, well, one of the Mara specials once again. It is an incredible sunrise. We had a bit of rain last night, and this is the clouds kind of being blown away and that sun slowly starting to rise. You can see it's still quite dark. The sun hasn't quite come up just yet, but that's okay. It will come up just now, and it should be a beautiful morning. My name is Tristan, as James mentioned, and I've got Big James with me this morning, and we hope that we're going to have a wonderful morning with all of you as we head out to try and see if we can go and catch up with the North Clan at the Den. Now, the reason why we want to head down to the North Clan is because there's a few interesting developments which we'll save for when we get there, but it sounds like lots and lots has happened since we were last around. Now, as you can see, it is a beautiful sort of sunrise. Now, I'm quite happy to see the sun in one respect, but not in another. Last night, it was a bit of a rough night for us in camp, when none of us, I think, got to bed too early, because what happened was the Olololo Pride that David was with yesterday afternoon decided to scale the escarpment, come up towards camp, and then cause absolute pandemonium. So what they did is they went and chased zebras all around camp, and they managed to then kill one very, very close to our studio area, and then have a huge fight with both elephants and hyenas, and the noise was quite something, and it meant that very few people in camp actually slept very well last night, and they only sort of finished up just after sort of midnight was when the sort of sound started to die down, and I believe then the lions started to move off at about sort of 3-4 this morning. They started to head back down the escarpment. So it was a noisy evening, but a very, very cool just to sit and listen to the sounds of lions and hyenas and elephants, and they chasing them all around, and you know, the sounds of their kind of interactions was very, very cool. So it was nice in that aspect, but it went a little bit late. Right, now we're going to head straight southwards down towards the Den. While we do that though, let's send you back across to Brent Leo Smith with the Nguma Pride.
There we go. Amber Eyes is busy getting a bath. A bit of social grooming. Now we can see at least 5 or 6 other members, including the young Talamati male, but definitely not the full pride. But this cold, windy weather and empty tummies means they might get up on the move and on the hunt this morning. There's always a possibility. Now, as I said, we can see a few more of them spread out through the bush. You can see one more lioness there, and there's a flat one behind her. It looked like a little, and there's the young Talamati male. And as I said, there's a couple more around, probably behind that termite mound that we can't just see. I can just see a flat one there. It looks like they had a very unsuccessful evening. It was very hot last night. It's not hot now, but it was very hot last night. I'd say it was still in the mid-20s come 10 o'clock last night. and that's 20 centigrades, not Fahrenheit. Tired kitties. And these two next to us seem to be a little bit more active than the rest of that lot. So there we go. Heads are up. And there's that female who's got that very distinct, well, at the moment, very distinct bite mark on the back of her leg. Owie! Not too bad though. You can see there's no infection in it. It looks good. Nice clean wound. Boof! Oh, Talamati's up. Keeping Seb swinging here, guys. Gotta keep him on his toes. And you can see quite hungry. He might come down to say hello to these girls that we're with. He's a good-looking little boy. He is going to be a big lion. Oh, he's got a new scratch on his schnoz. Hello, big boy. Now, the females are far more tolerant of him than they are of those two, or three actually, but there's only one that I can see at the moment, Mungen males. But he better be careful. If the evokers find him, I think there's going to be trouble. Especially since he's starting to try and mate with some of the females. Costa's wondering about, is there hierarchy in a lion pride like a hyena clan? Nope, not at all. There's hierarchy amongst the male coalitions, very much so. And however, the dominance changes depending on who's feeling the most, feeling the best, who's not carrying an injury. So the dominance between the males shifts and changes constantly. Whereas with the females, there is no real dominance between the females of the pride. You're being very lazy this morning. Come on, guys. It's not like you've walked far. They've gone all of about a kilometre from quarantine, from where we saw them on our way home at about 10 o'clock last night, or 9:30. Good footrest. Amber Eyes is being a footrest at the moment. Not fast asleep, but definitely resting. You can see her eye twitching from the flies. And they'll be quite enjoying this weather. Not too many stable flies about. For those of you who don't know what stable flies are, they're those little black flies that you often see on animals' ears, including domestic livestock, horses and cows and dogs, and they are vicious little bloodsuckers, and that will bite constantly. So you will often see on the older big cats, their ears are very tatty, and a lot of that is actually from fly bites, not from being ripped or pulled apart by another cat or creature. Tally Ho is wondering, why is a young male lion from a different pride with the Nkuhumas? Well, this young male here is from the Talamati pride, and the Nkuhumas and the Talamati pride are actually related. They split. They used to be one pride, but they did split, and that's probably why they're more tolerant of him. However, the reason that there's so many young males, and 4 in total, that are not a part of the original Nkuma pride, is all the havoc that the evokers have created over the last while. and the Birminghams. So the Mungen pride, the little Yangen males, have run away from the Birmingham boys down south. Talamati has run away from the Evokers, who have taken over his natal pride. And for these young males, it's always easier to join up with a pride of females. And there are far more benefits than wandering around alone, and especially those Mungens who are probably too young to have left the pride by themselves. This Talamati boy, I think he's just taking a chance, and he'll try for as long as possible to stay with the pride, but I think eventually he's going to have to leave, particularly as more and more of the females of the pride start coming to estrus and attracting those evoker males. Now, when we woke up this morning, the stars were out and about. Well, they're always out. We could see them clearly. And literally from about 4:30, this cloud cover just swept in, being pushed by some strong winds up high. And the winds now on the ground are starting to get a bit stronger as well. You can see the tops of the trees starting to do a little dance. Here we go. Here comes the wind. You could almost hear it coming up the valley. Okay. Well, I think we're going to give the lions a little bit longer to see if they're going to get moving before we move on. But in the meantime, let's go see what James the Monkey Henry is up to.
I'm surveying the domain of Juma, seeing if I can find anything other than a few trees to look at. At the moment, all is silent, as I said, but for the wind I hear no lions calling, no leopards sawing, no hyenas whooping. And so we're not following anything at the moment, we're just going to be looking for little things. There has been a great emergence of insects and that sort of thing as a result of the rain and the heat that we've had. And as you can see, this poor old marula tree is probably quite pleased that we haven't seen any elephants this morning. It has been mangled many times. Poor thing. James, yes, I will keep an eye out for a giant land snail. I'll do my best to find a giant land snail for you and for your edification. Thing is, once it gets cold again like this, I mean, I say cold, cool, it's not cold. Once it gets cool again, they tend to kind of not move, and so it's unlikely they'll be out on a day like this, but it's not impossible. I will now attempt to dismount from this tree. Andre, get out of the way, otherwise I'm going to run into you and impale myself on the aerial. Now, it's quite nice that these monkey pods are starting to come up because they often have interesting little things living on them. They probably just need a little bit more time. Oh, here's something. It's a moth. Come look, Gendre. There's a moth here. Do you see it? What kind of a moth it is? Well, I couldn't begin to tell you, I'm afraid. It's got a little pretend thorn on its back. And it too is avoiding movement at this stage because it will be a little bit cold. Very good. How pleasant to find a moth. Not quite as pleasant as finding male lions on a kill in the Masai Mara.
No, indeed, especially lions in a muddy pit with a kill, which is always quite exciting. And it's not only that, is that there's also a number of hyenas that are around as well. So you can see it's two young male lions. Who they are, I'm not quite sure. They're very young, both of them. Their manes have not developed at all, and so I don't know these two boys. And then you can see in the background is a whole bunch of hyenas that are milling about. In fact, when we first got here, there was about 10 or 11 of them, and they've kind of just milling and moving around all over the place. And I think they'll come back eventually. You can see they kind of scattered about. I have a funny feeling they were the ones that actually killed this, because a lot of them are very, very muddy, and so they look as though they've been kind of dragged through that mud, whereas the lions themselves are quite clean in comparison. So I think that these hyenas must have brought this down. The lions have then come in, and hyenas are now just kind of weighing up whether or not it's worth actually trying to challenge for this carcass once again, and to actually try and see if they can get it back from these lions. Interesting with hyenas is often what you will see is when they are kind of interacting with lions, if there's female lions around, they tend to be a lot more kind of brave and brazen and push and try and get in and kind of chase away those lions. But when it's males, you find there's a little bit more kind of circumspect behavior, where they'll just watch and they'll check and they'll look and they'll try and figure out whether or not it's actually worth going after them. But because these boys are both quite young, I would imagine that these hyenas might at some point think about it. Now I'm just trying to scan around, but you can actually see that there are so many more hyenas right in the background. There's a lot that are far, far, far away as well, that are kind of spread out, and so there is plenty around here, and I reckon if they all came together, they would be able to have a bit of a showdown. So you can see there's one there, and then in the distance, those are all hyenas that are moving around. So whether this is North Clan or Olololo Clan, difficult to say. We're right on the boundary between the two of them at the moment, so it could be either one. It's not too far from where Steve found the Olololo Clan den the other day, so I would imagine it's them, although the way that they're walking, a lot of them are heading off southwards, which would be towards sort of North Clan territory. So they're a little bit far to actually see exactly who is who, but we'll try and sit here for a bit and kind of work it out. But you can see the one male is now kind of finished feeding and has crawled out of this ditch and is standing there looking very muddy. You boys are going to be filthy by the time you finish with this carcass. I don't know what it is even. I think it's a buffalo. I think that's what they've chased inside there. It looks like maybe a buffalo. I don't see any other signs of sort of wildebeest around. There was a big herd of buffalo in terms of the tracks a little bit earlier, but is it a buffalo? Looks buffalo-like, doesn't it? Difficult to say when there's so much mud all over it, but that must have been quite a fight. And unfortunately what's probably happened is that these guys have pushed it into this little kind of drainage section, and there's nowhere for it to go, and that's why we've ended up in this fight. And you can see there's a lot of water there. That's from last night's rain. This was dry a few days ago, or 2 days ago. There was no water inside here at all, and so it's just all from the rain last night, and perfect kind of hunting conditions for the likes of hyenas and lions. Now let's see, this male's just gotten up. I think he's going to go back down and feed the male that was lying closest to us. He's got a bit of a belly on him already, so I'd imagine he's eaten a bit. But you can see, look how muddy his feet are. And there's a little scent marking. That's all just behavior to try and show these hyenas that he's not afraid of them. So he's trying to mark to try and show them, I'm not scared. I'm going to come in here and just show you exactly who's boss. Now he might go charging towards them. Let's see how brave he actually is. I think he'd be a very brave soul to go charge into the middle of that, being just on his own with his brother on the other side. But let's have a look. No, he's decided discretion is the better part of valor in this, and taking on a whole clan of hyenas is probably not the best bet. Now, if we see the other male come across, we might see them. You see, look, all the hyenas are actually scattering. Now that the other male sort of walked towards him, all the hyenas started to just run off a little bit and kind of distance themselves slightly. When it's one lion, they're not as afraid, but when there's two males kind of together, then you find the hyenas get a little bit more kind of wary of what's going on. Now, two are going to come back. But isn't that beautiful also with the sort of sunrise that we've got? It's spectacular. Miranda, probably not great to eat so much mud, although they'll probably get some nutrients that they don't get from a carcass out of the soil. We know that a lot of animals will actually eat soil as part of their, to sort of supplement their diet and get certain nutrients. So I don't think it affects them too much. You know, lions and leopards and the likes, hyenas have such strong constitutions when it comes to actually being able to eat that they probably just defecate it out. What they can't digest just passes through, and the rest is okay. I don't think they have to worry too much about eating too much soil. It's not something that's going to really worry these guys too much and cause too much havoc when it comes to their ability to survive. I mean, they obviously, you know, live a wild life, and so these kind of things where they eat in the mud is not ideal for them, but it does happen from time to time, and they do feed on it. What you might see is once it gets a little bit lighter, they might try and drag it out and try and get it up onto the grass, because they, as we know with lions and particularly most cats, is that they don't really like to be wet and muddy, and so if they can avoid it, they will. And so once it gets maybe a little bit lighter, you might find that they actually pull it and try and get it onto the bank itself to be able to sort of feed where it's a little bit more grassy and less wet and muddy. And you can see it's a bit of a tricky one to actually get down there. Come on, boy. But they've had a good feed, both of these boys, so I mean, I don't know if it, like I say, I surmise it was the hyenas that pulled it down, just given how dirty so many of them are. But maybe there's been just lots of interaction, because the boys have definitely fed quite a bit too. I mean, their tummies are, look at this. This is how you try to get down a slippery, muddy bank without trying to get too muddy, and eventually you just kind of got to plop into it. But you'll find that they're going to eat that stomach content first. They're going to try and pull that out and feed on that, and then once that's done, they'll then start to feed on the actual meat, and you'll find, I'm sure, that they're going to try and pull this up and out eventually. By the end of today, we'll see it kind of on the grassy area rather than down in this ditch. Hyenas aren't really that interested just yet in fighting with them. There's a lot of hyenas that are still kind of milling about, but they're not really banding together and getting excited. What we need is a lot of whooping and a lot of kind of calling, and that will get them into a bit of a frenzy, and then they might come in and start actually interacting a little bit more. For now, it's just kind of Mexican standoff as they all just sort of watch the lions feed off what's going on. Right, we're going to sit here for quite some time. We'll probably see whether this plays out as we think it might, in terms of hyenas coming in and trying to challenge for it. And so while we do that, let's send you across to James, who's got something, well, that's not very pretty, much like that carcass in the mud.
It's not extremely pretty, no. It is a slug, some sort of velvet slug, I believe. And, well, you may see that it has sand on it, and that's because I picked it up. And I picked it up because it was going to be squished, I think, on the road. And so we've put it on this log to make it filmically appealing. And I think this is probably where we'll leave it, because it's safer here than it is on the road, where, well, any hornbill could come past and devour it, or any vehicle could come past and think, oh, there's a bird dropping. I think we'll just drive over it. Anyway, there is a slug, a sign of the summer to come, the summer that is, and it'll be looking for dried and rotting leaf litter to eat. A little bit like a snail. Most of these mollusks eat that sort of thing. They are not great voracious predators. And really there's not a huge amount else to say about the slug. I know my mother has dreadful trouble with slugs. Yes, Tim, slugs are related to snails. I mean, not very closely related. You must understand that the diversity of invertebrates is obviously that enormously greater than it is mammals, for example, and vertebrates in general. So yes, they are both mollusks, but I think mollusca is a phylum. In other words, it's the same as or a class. It's the same as saying, are we related to rats? Or are we related to duck-billed platypus, that sort of thing. So yes, they are related. They come from the same class, the mollusks or mollusca, but they're certainly, I don't think, very closely related genetically. You couldn't sort of interbreed them or expect them to hybridize if they lived together. It would be like expecting a horse and a kangaroo in some way to be able to hybridize, if you know what I mean. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the distance that their genetics are probably from each other. I don't know that for sure, but certainly when they're classified, that's where they are. They won't be in the same family, they won't be in the same order, they won't, I don't think. Oh, look, it's got its little feelers out. Can you see that, Jondry? It's got afraid of Jondry and put its little feelers back inside. Slugs, I think, die when it's dry, Tim. I suspect they lay their eggs quite quickly after they are adults. I mean, I know very little about their life history, and I don't suspect that they are able to survive through the dry. So probably, unlike the giant land snail, which of course can live for 10 years or so because it has the protection of the shell, I imagine that one of these things would desiccate and die unless they're able to get under the ground. and survive the winter. Now, I mean, this thing is not a baby slug, it's quite large, and I wonder maybe if they can hide under the ground, but I don't know. I know very little about them. Well, there you go, Trish. You wanted to know where their head, eyes, and mouth are. There you can see its little eyes. They're on the stalks like they are with a snail. And then it's got two front feelers, or not feelers, little protuberances that help it to sense other things, probably smell. And then its mouth is underneath. And inside the mouth is this very interesting tongue called a radula, which is like a toothed conveyor belt. And that helps it to eat. Well, I mean, that's how it does eat. That's how it breaks up the drying and dead plant matter that it will eat in its life as a slug. Now, I suppose if you are one of the few that believe in reincarnation and that sort of thing, you can probably agree that whoever the slug was before, it wasn't a very good person. Never too late. I'm not sure if the slug can hear us. I don't know if it can hear the individual words I'm saying. I'm pretty sure it can sense some kind of sound or vibration. So it can probably pick up the sound waves coming out of my deep, booming bass voice. And, they'll kind of prod it slightly on the side. But I don't know that it can make out the words that I'm saying. There will be some kind of sense of air disturbance and sound waves, I'm sure. But like I say, I don't know. Alrighty, I'm going to leave this slug over here. It's about to get moving. We don't want to get in its way. Let's go back across to Brent Leo Smith, who apparently is still with sleeping lions.
Very sleepy lions, and I have no idea why they should be so sleepy, because they haven't moved very far overnight. I'm just going to reverse back quickly to show you something. So the lions are sleepy, and there's Impala, who haven't seen the lions. Right there. So there we go. And the lions have not seen the Impala, and the Impala haven't seen the lions. Oblivious to each other, only about, 70 meters, 60 meters apart. I do think, however, the Impala will probably spot the lions long before the lions spot the Impala. There we go. a flat cat. Well, Talamati's lifted his head slightly. Charonda is wondering, do lions groom one another like baboons and gorillas? Yes, but they do not groom each other like baboons and gorillas. They do groom. It is called allo grooming. Mostly it's to reaffirm social bonds within the pride and keep the relationships strong, and particularly between the females. And the main reason for that is, of course, when lions decide to have dinner, all social niceties go out the door, and whoever's the most hungry will beat, snarl, bite, and scratch to get the most meat. There we go. Well, I don't think these lions are going to get up to too much. We'll maybe come back and check on them a little bit later. And I think we might go have a little squiz for Horsana. Give James a hand. And we'll come check on the lions a little bit later this morning. Okay, well, that's a good way to start. Let's see if we can find some spots to go along with the tawny cats. In the meantime, let's go see how it's playing out with Tristan and the lions and hyenas all the way in the Mara.
Now, hyenas seem to be departing the scene, and so it's just the lions that are gazing upon a beautiful sunrise at the moment. But what's interesting is that they're quite kind of alert, and the reason why they're alert is that they are, well, there is, should I say, not that's very bad English. There is a herd of eland that is slowly kind of making their way towards where they are. Now, if they had to get within this little drainage segment and those eland kept coming towards them, they might have a chance to hunt. I know they've got food, but you know with cats they have these kind of abilities to hunt things even when they are not that hungry. It's just part and parcel of their kind of makeup is that they try their very best to hunt whenever they get an opportunity. And so there you can see the eland are slowly kind of coming through, not too far from where these guys are. I'd imagine that they would be able to see the lions if they looked carefully enough. The lions aren't exactly hugely kind of hidden. They're quite out in the open, sort of on the edge of this little bank, and so it would make it quite easy for them to be seen. But the eland don't seem to be any the wiser of what's going on, and they're just kind of drifting slowly but surely towards them, and the two boys are just watching. The hyenas, like I say, have all pretty much moved off. They're around, but they're with sort of 100, 200 meters away now, and kind of just milling about and playing and chasing each other around. You can see a few of them kind of in the distance. Maybe not there, no, a little bit to the left, I think, James. Somewhere that side is where they mostly are, in that open. There they are. You see all those dots moving around, so you can see they've gone quite a long way away from where we are. I suppose what they're going to do is just rest up in those areas, and then if they see the lions move off, or if there's an issue, then they can kind of come back in and try and challenge. But at this stage they're not too worried. You can see lots of games being played with the ones in the background. They've been running around sort of chasing one another and biting and having a really good time of it, as they've kind of, I suppose, enjoyed this fact that it's a cool morning. There's been a bit of rain and there's a carcass around, and they may have had a little bit of a feed too, so lots of energy to be given off. Now, is there one with a collar all the way in the back? The last one at the back in the middle, that little kind of ball of hyenas, that one that's walking away from us, does that have a collar on it? Come on, turn. There, that one in the middle. It does look like it has a collar, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Now, who that is, I mean, it's so far away that it's impossible to even see a spot pattern or anything like that, so it would be almost impossible to tell exactly who that is. I mean, you can see it is miles away from where we are, but there's lots of kind of greeting that's going on. And we're talking about going towards the North Clan, and there's a reason why we want to go towards the North Clan, because yesterday Faith went and spent some time with the hyena researchers, and they were telling us that it seems like Waffles is in the process of being overthrown by Soup at the moment, and so it seems as though there is complete pandemonium within the clan system at the moment, and Waffles is being far more submissive to Soup, and Soup is really kind of dominating her at the moment, which means that there will be a takeover. Well, it sounds like there's going to be a takeover, so we want to go and try and spend as much time with them as possible and see how it all plays out, and whether or not Waffles will stand up to Soup at some point, or is it going to be a thing where Soup is just going to completely oust Waffles and she's going to take over as the new matriarch of the North Clan. But it's an interesting time, and it's something that we thought might happen. We knew Waffles was getting quite old, and Jamie was saying when she was here that she thought Soup would be probably the best challenger for it, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that actually plays out, and how that all kind of happens. So we want to try, like I say, spend as much time as possible. The problem is if that is Waffles, that is all the way down there, then we probably find that the den site for the North Clan will be quite sort of quiet, and there won't be too much happening. I am almost 90% sure, though, that it isn't Waffles that is all the way down there. I'm 90% sure that this is the Olololo clan. We're so close to where that den is that Steve found that I would be very, very kind of surprised if the North Clan were here and the Olololos were allowing them to be here, even though they are so close with the den. Now, sorry, Lou, if you can just repeat the name for me. Kalina. Kalina, how many hyenas are collared in the Mara system? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. There's a few males that are collared, and then there's quite a few females from each of the sort of clans. Here in this particular part, in the triangle area, you'll have there's a collared individual in the Ololo clan, one in the North clan, and I think there are 2 in South clan, and then also a couple in the Happy Zebra clan. So there's in terms of females, and then males there's random ones that have been collared. So I'm not sure exactly how many. I'll find out for you, and we'll readdress it. Jamie might know, actually. I'll try and send her a message quickly and ask her, although it's her morning off, so I don't want to wake her too early, so I'll try and send her a message a little bit later and see if she knows what's going on. But how cool is this, where you've got hyenas, and then you've got these eland just kind of coasting through with the sunrise, and these lions sort of watching what's going on. No, I don't think so. I mean, anytime you talk about overpopulations, you talk about things where the animal is being highly detrimental to the rest of the ecosystem, and so therefore destroying the ecosystem by hunting too much, or killing other predators off and becoming just them as a predator, or if they are too successful that they can't even find their own food. And that's not what we see from the Mara. We know the Mara has got a huge amount of prey species that is available to hyenas, so they can hunt things like buffalo, wildebeest, zebra, eland, topi. There's Tommy's, impalas. They've got all kinds of things that they can go after all throughout the year, and so there's enough food to sustain them. In terms of predation and affecting the numbers of other predators, that's an interesting one. I don't know if there's been a study done on it and whether or not these guys are affecting numbers of things like leopard and lion. I'm sure that they play a role in affecting the number of cheetah that are around. But the thing with cheetah is, if a cheetah can be in an open clearing where the grass doesn't get too long and it can see hyenas coming, then it's not too bad. But obviously hyenas are a massive threat to their young. So I'm sure hyenas do play a part in that. But in terms of overpopulated, I don't think so. It seems to be a very fine balance here. There's a huge population of lions within the Mara system. There's a lot of leopard around, even though we don't see them that much. They are here and they are seen. And if you look at the other side and into the conservancies and areas like that, you'll see that there are a lot of leopard sightings that take place. So I don't think there's an overpopulation. I think there's probably a very stable population is probably the best way to put it. And there will be a number of things that will keep hyena numbers at bay as well. So I mean, they also have the same issues that cheetah would have, in that they've got to protect their young from things like lions and leopard and even rival clans. And we know, even since in the time that we've been here in the Mara, is that there's been quite a few hyenas that have been attacked by lions as well, big hyenas that have been left quite badly injured. And so these kind of things can all take place. You can see all the hyenas in amongst the eland, and there's no sort of animosity between those lot. I'm quite surprised, though, because sometimes hyenas can be a bit cheeky and just chase for the sake of chasing things. But an eland is a massive animal, and so I suppose that's why you find they may be backing off a little bit. Collie, are the hyenas in the Mara bigger than the ones in Djuma? No, so they seem to be slightly smaller, particularly the males. What they are is a lot fluffier, so they get this appearance that they're bigger in because of this kind of fluffy coat that they have. But Jamie and I spoke about it, and Brent as well. We all had a kind of chat about it, and they both also reckon that the hyenas here aren't quite as large. They're just a lot fatter a lot of the time and a lot fluffier, and so they're not quite as big, though, in terms of actual body mass. It would be interesting to know, though. I mean, I think it's always tricky to sum up sizes of animals when you're seeing kind of animals from two different places and not near each other. Often we make these kind of comparisons as how much bigger is Tingana than Hosana or whatever, these kind of things. But without actually seeing them side by side, the eyes can trick you. You can often feel like things are slightly bigger than what they really are, or slightly smaller. So difficult to say, but they appear to be smaller. So there's just a car that's going past, so I do apologize about all the noise. And while we wait for these cars to move off, let's send you back across to James, who's plodding along on his walk.
We've got some elephants here Herbert has managed to spot. Just going to check the wind, which is very good for us because it's just blown ash into my face. Let's go and have a look. Also just seen Brentley Smith driving down the road there. Wonder if he'll see them. So let's make an approach here. This approach is not ideal because we're losing height now, but the elephants are up the other side. And so what we'll seek now is to gain height once we've got through this little gully so that we can see them. We'll maintain cover the whole way, check the wind, and be quiet. A breeze like today does help us because it blows our smell away, obviously. It also masks our amazingly noisy human footsteps. And you should really go and try this one day. Go outside into a garden or into a park or something at night when it's quiet and try and walk silently. Sit for 5 minutes in total silence and then get up and move. And you will notice how unbelievably loud we are when we walk. Of course, in the case of Gendre, it's made that much more difficult by the fact that he's holding a camera and can't actually watch where his giant size 13s are walking. Yes, Miranda, I did use a dirty old sock to check the wind. There's a dirty old sock filled with ash. There are the elephants. You can just see a grey ear through the greenery of the bush there. So what we'll do, there's a termite mound just to the right-hand side. You can see Herbert just walking in front there. We'll go and see if we can get onto a termite mound and get a bit of a view. Now there's some impala to the left of us, and they have just alarm called at us. So we need to be a bit careful, because the elephants will react to that sound. We're just going to go back through the gully. There's a termite mound the other side. It's the old hyena den. There's one quite close here. There's one quite close here. They're just down in the gully. Come, let's go quickly through here. We've got the two trainees with us. I'm just going to tell them to close up the space. Guys, stay close here. Obviously, it's much more easier for us to be discovered if we are spread out. The greatest danger we face in the Sabi sands from elephants is complacency. And there we have the elephants there, and probably a better view from just here. Okay, come in this way. Mrs. Lapwing, I am bossy. I'm especially bossy on a walk. And it's interesting, you know, when you learn to do this with guests, you have to be bossy, because even though people are sometimes paying in excess of $1,000 a day for the pleasure of your company, you don't want them not behaving themselves. Okay, I'm going to ask Gendre to move around here into some cover, just because that elephant's coming to the open. Guys, get behind Herbert, please. There we go. So what we've done is we've moved ourselves to cover, and we're just going to wait for them to walk slowly across there. As always, the goal remains not to be seen. Yeah, we can do an unscheduled. So what we're doing, hello everybody who's just joined us. We're sitting here watching some elephants live in the Kruger Park of South Africa on the western fringes. This is a perfect way to start a Tuesday morning. And what we're doing is trying desperately to watch them without them knowing that we're here, simply because we don't want them to be affected by us. We don't want to be affected by them. We're just going to move around to cover. Come this way. My name is James, and we're just going to move into a little bit more cover and watch them walk past, because the difficulty is, of course, that they will see us, and we don't want that. There's quite a nice view of them here. And if we stay relatively still, with this amount of cover, we should remain invisible. Checking the wind is very good for us. David, this is very beautiful. I absolutely agree with you. I must just say that this herd, I think, has got a tiny baby with them. And so we need to be doubly sure that they don't feel threatened by our presence. The approach is very much one of non-confrontation. And if they do see us, we'll just quickly extract out of the area. It's unlikely they will. I think there's a little bit of mistaken thought that elephants have got poor eyesight. They definitely have blind spots, but I think if they're looking for something, I think they probably see pretty well. I think I've just seen the tiny baby. Okay, we're going to move around this way. Got a nice view from here. We've got a termite mound that we'll go behind if we need to get some cover. Oh, it's quite a nice view from around here. There we go. Yeah, let's try and get up the mound. Please ask any questions that you want to anybody. I just got a bit excited at the beginning to tell you to do that. I'm standing up here with Herbert, our superb tracker in Game Scout. There's the baby. There's the tiny little baby. You see it there? Carol, we're not that far. We're probably about, well, I don't know, about 80 meters or so, which is about 250, 260 feet. There is a gully between us and them as well, though. But these gullies and little bits of raised ground can give a very false sense of security, because elephants are a lot more athletic than they look. They're not exactly gymnasts, but they can move up and down sort of fairly steep banks pretty easily. Now, if they did see us, what you would see is that they would stop moving entirely, and they would communicate with each other. There'd be low rumbles, which you wouldn't be able to hear, but they would just stop moving entirely, and then assess whether there was a threat or not. The one on the left there has got the little baby with it. John, I have been charged by an elephant once or twice, in vehicles and on foot, but most of the time, well, in fact every time, I've managed to get out of the situation. But basically, as long as you are respectful and careful, you pay attention to the wind and cover, don't get blasé, then you'll find that it's pretty safe to do what we're doing now. Alright, we're going to leave those of you who've just joined us to go and get on with the rest of your day. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for joining us. The rest of the drive you can find, if you like, on YouTube at SafariLive. You just type in SafariLive on YouTube and you'll find our stream. Brent is currently driving around as well in this area looking for leopards, and we've got Tristan up in the Masai Mara with a great conflagration of lions and hyenas. Alright, you're still with us. Let's go across quickly to Tristan, who I believe is experiencing some battle in the Masai Mara with his lions and hyenas.
Indeed, because our lions are up and our hyenas have gathered. So all the hyenas have come back in again, and it's now one of these standoffs that takes place between two of the most sort of ancient enemies that we have out here. And it's been funny to watch because it's kind of half-hearted chasing by the lions, and the hyenas are so clever. What they've done is they've dragged these lions very far from the carcass, and what's happening is slowly but surely others are starting to come around, and they're almost heading back towards the carcass, and so some are almost acting as little decoys to chase them, and you can see they've kind of dragged them further and further away, while the rest of them are going to slowly sort of come up along the bank and be able to then get to where this carcass is. It's quite amazing to watch these hyenas at work. You can see the boys, they're having a bit of bonding time as well, and they've had quite fun chasing these hyenas around. It's been fun to watch them. They kind of charge at them half-heartedly, and it's all a little bit kind of gamesmanship at this stage. But hyenas are seriously clever animals. It's amazing to watch them kind of just drag these lions and tease them a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, and then they all start to kind of come around the back towards the carcass itself. And you can see the kind of lions, they don't know which way to really go. They sort of run after them half-heartedly, and the hyenas just kind of scatter a little bit, and then they'll slowly edge forward, and it's almost this kind of back-and-forth chess game that's happening. And I reckon hyenas have a lot more intelligence, unfortunately, than what lions do, and so you might find that they'll eventually work this out and kind of get these boys away from the kill, and far enough that they can kind of come in and try and steal it. And what might happen is if they start to steal it, you might find that then there's a lot more kind of aggression between them and the lions, and you'll find that you might see the hyenas be a little bit more assertive in what's going on. But for now, it's still kind of this game of cat and mouse, so to speak, and you find that the kind of hyenas are hounding the lions for a little bit and then trot off when they get a little bit close. There we go. You can see all kind of calculated, isn't it? Hyenas know exactly the distance that they need to be away not to get caught out here, and so as the lions get a little closer, they then just drift off slightly, and then they come in from behind, and you can see how they kind of just circle this lion the whole time. So they're just kind of baiting him away slightly. The problem is that there's two of them, and so that's why these kind of quite tricky to get towards the carcass with another lion that's around. If it was just the one, I think they'd be able to chase him off. Robert, how old these lions are? I would say probably 3.5, 4 years old, somewhere there. Would be my guess. So boys that have just kind of left. Adam was telling me that there are 2 young males that have been around lately, moving about, so I wonder if it's not these 2. They seem quite confident in their sort of approach to things. They've scent marked a little bit, they've been moving around, they don't seem as though they're too worried about what's going on. And where we are now is kind of the boundary between the Kichwa males and where the Musketeers sort of territory starts, or did start when I was last here. And so, you know, they're kind of in that little gap at the moment, and so maybe that's why they're doing okay. Now, it's not the 2 males that I once saw that when I first came into the Mara, there were 2 young males that were also hanging around this area. It's not the same 2 boys, so I don't know where they come from or who they could be at this stage. We'll have to do a bit of kind of digging around and trying to find out. I'm pretty sure between everybody and all the guides we might be... Oh, there we go. There you go. He's not really doing much other than just tiring himself out, but it's entertaining to watch as hyenas kind of scatter all over the place. And you can see the hyenas, they've got so much more stamina that they don't mind playing this game. They all just keep coming back as the male turns his back, so they just come running back towards him again, and they just keep accosting him, and they'll basically wear him out. And the interesting thing is the more this goes on and the more this kind of interaction happens, it's going to attract more and more members of the clan to this area, particularly if it starts to get vocal. I can already see 2 other members starting to come away from the distance. They're starting to come in now, and so we've gone from only, I think there was, when we first got your 9 hyenas, to I think we're close to 20 now that have started to arrive. And so it's getting more and more and more, and the more the lions are chasing them, the more they kind of grouping together, and the more it's frenzying these hyenas to actually start becoming a bit of a united force and start to push back a little bit. But isn't it amazing just to watch? These kind of interactions are so special, and it's one of the most epic parts about being in the Mara. Obviously there's a lot of other things that go on, but the fact that you can watch these kind of interactions between big clans of hyenas and lions is fascinating, and it is amazing to watch just how calculated hyenas can be. The lions are more just kind of reactionary. They run in and chase just because they see a lot of hyenas, but the hyenas themselves, they slowly but surely kind of worm their way closer, and they just drag them around, and they've dragged these lions probably, I would say now, from where the carcass is, almost 100 meters away. So you can see this one is trying to slowly start coming back. But what they do is, as they start coming back, they get closer and closer, and that causes the lions to react and then pull them further away from where the carcass is. It's incredibly clever the way they go about it. But isn't this cool? Look at that. Amazing. Very, very, very interesting to be a part of all of these kind of things. It's one of my favorite things, like I say, is to watch these interactions between these guys. Right, now, I think what we're going to do is I just want to see how these lions go and where the hyenas end up if they sort of follow them again, because the lions are slowly coming back towards us, and the hyenas momentarily have stopped. They've kind of all come together in the distance there. So I just want to see if they're going to follow the lions back towards this carcass. I think the lions have realized they've gotten quite far away, and so they're now trying to drift back towards where the carcass is, and the hyenas aren't really following them at this stage. I'm sure they will. It's going to be that kind of day where it's going to be a slow build up again, and then they'll get closer, and then you'll find this kind of chase and sort of back off and chase and back off, and I'm pretty sure it's going to carry on for most of the day. But at least these boys, even though they're young, have done a good job of actually trying to kind of make sure that they have protected their carcass quite well. I'm quite impressed with them, actually. There's a lot of hyenas that they've had to deal with there, so it's a good job from the boys to make sure that their prize is safe. So well done, guys. You've done a very good job. Beautiful young boys, aren't they, though? They're in perfect condition. So exactly, Louise, they are. The hyenas in the background, as Lou said, it look like they're scheming and plotting their next attack into this sort of area, and they are. It's a kind of a group session. Everybody comes together and they all give a little whisper, and a game plan gets put together, and then they will come towards these kind of lions and try and then sort of take over with this carcass. I still want to know who actually killed it. I have a funny feeling it was the hyenas that actually took this down to start with, and that these boys have maybe taken it, and that's why there's kind of a lot of animosity between the two. I might be wrong. I mean, the boys do have a lot of mud on them too, but not as much as what some of those hyenas have got. So, and also just the sheer number of tracks that are going up and down towards the carcass indicate that the hyenas have been down in that sort of muddy section as well. Now you'll see on our sort of right, as these lions come, is they're going to drop down, and from here it's very difficult for us to actually see the carcass. We'd have to be kind of right on it. But that one's going, and then the next one is just to the right a little bit of that, and he's going to drop down to where the kind of carcass actually is. I'm pretty sure these guys want to pull this out. So now watch, this one's going to stalk onto his brother. You might see him jump. Look. He kind of had that stalking motion. And there's a lot of games that will be played between young lions, particularly if they're well fed like this, and it's a coolish morning. He was kind of had his head down low, and he was just stalking. I thought he might just jump on his brother, which would have been funny. He's going to. Look, watch. Isn't that cool? No. Doesn't feel like playing games. He's trying to get to food, and there's mud, and not interested in this gamesmanship nonsense that his coalition partner. Now, I don't know if they're brothers. I suspect that they might be brothers. I mean, the age looks pretty similar between the two of them, so I suspect that they are from the same litter, but tricky to know without knowing exactly who they are and where they've come from. You don't really kind of know for sure. We've seen males of similar ages sometimes join up from different litters, or even from different prides sometimes, which is not that common, but it does happen from time to time. And look at him looking down there. Oh, shame, boy. Is this a conundrum for you? As we said just now, lions are not that clever, are they? Exactly, Mrs. Lapwing. It is all fun and games until someone falls in the mud and gets a dirty mane. No one likes a dirty mane. And so they are kind of, I suppose, reining in the games a little bit. But the hyenas are slowly but surely winding their way back towards us as well. It's going to be interesting to see if the lions kind of disappear and go down into the drainage, if the hyenas get the courage to start coming in. Now, where's that male going? There's one male that's going into a big hole under the ground. So sometimes what we have here on the roads is a little drainage pipe, and that allows the water to flow under the road rather than over it and cause damage. And so he's gone kind of looking in that pipe. I don't know what's inside there. I actually have a very funny story about one of these pipes from here in the Mara, and it was at the gate close to Olololo and just outside, and there was basically the guys came on a drive and they came along and over one of these kind of pipes, and they saw a warthog sticking out, just its back legs, and they thought to themselves, no, there's something wrong here, this warthog is stuck. So they thought about it, and they watched this warthog for a while, and the warthog didn't move. It was just kind of its back legs were kicking every now and then, but nothing was really happening. And so they decided, no, well, they're going to try and get this warthog out. So they went and got down a whole bunch of the guides, and they tried to grab this warthog's leg and pull it out, and the warthog was stuck. It wouldn't come out at all. They thought, no, this thing's really stuck. So they went and called the guys, and they went and more people tried to pull, nothing. They couldn't get it out. So they thought, well, we've got a TLB that's fixing the roads. What we'll do is we'll just dig slightly into that pipe and break the pipe slightly, and that will then free this warthog, and the warthog, because it was too fat, will be able to then get out because the pressure won't be there. So they do this, but as the TLB hits that stone, out shoots a lioness from the one side and the warthog out the other side, and everybody panicked and was diving for cover because no one had realized that this poor warthog had a lioness attached to its face, and these guys were trying to kind of pull it out by its legs, and the poor warthog had a lioness pulling it from the other direction by its face, and that lioness probably thought it was some sort of other predator trying to take its warthog meal away. And so there was this massive standoff between a lioness and people, and then eventually the lioness ran, the warthog ran, and everyone got a big shock, and that was the end of that. So it was quite funny to watch. James loves that story. It's very, very, very classic. But anyway, good. Now our hyenas are slowly sort of coming closer and closer. We'll be patient and wait. I'm sure they're going to eventually get right towards the carcass, and we'll see another interaction between the lions and them. But in the meantime, though, let's send you across to James, who's got, well, one of my favorite little animals that you find in the summer season.
Yes, it is a magnificent little animal. It is a burrowing scorpion, and I will now have to go and relearn all my scorpion information, which I've forgotten over the winter. But this is a burrowing scorpion. It is a devourer of millipedes, various other creatures, but you can always find millipedes just outside their burrows, millipede exoskeletons. And he's quite a big fellow. And as we must remind ourselves at the beginning of each summer season, he isn't a particularly venomous fellow, and that's because he is a hunter with his pincers rather than his tail. And you can see that, of course, by the large pincers and the small tail. He overpowers his prey rather than stings them. Just see if we can come up here. Okay, sorry, we're going to quickly cross to Brent with the cuckoo.
Yes, indeed. A cuckoo we hear very often but almost never see. The red-chested cuckoo. And in South Africa, what the red-chested cuckoo says is an old, I suppose it's an Afrikaans folklore. I'm not 100% sure, but they say is Piet my vrou, Piet my wife, Piet my wife, Piet my wife. I'm trying to think, is it an Afrikaans folk song? I actually don't know. I think it might be. It's quite nice to see him calling as well. No, it is not. It is not an Afrikaans folklore. It just sounds like Piet my wife. Piet my vrou. Piet my vrou. Now, of course, being a cuckoo, it is a brood parasite. And I'm sure most of you will know what a brood parasite is. It is a bird that will lay its eggs in another bird's nest. And they'll actually scoop out the other bird's eggs, and poor unsuspecting victims will often end up raising the cuckoos to adulthood, and the cuckoos are quite often double the size of the host. Now, I've got a question for you. I've told you that a Piet my vrou is a brood parasite, and I would like you to try guess, in this area, what is its favorite bird to parasitize? So what bird do you think the pit mayfro, or red-chested cuckoo, parasitizes in this area. Now remember, where we hear them calling is around drainage systems and riverbeds, so it's obviously going to be a bird that lives around the riverbeds. Oh, we've got another migrant making noise closest to us. Oh, he flew away, don't worry, Sebastian. There was a little male redback shrike. Oh, there's the warburgs as well, up to the right of the cuckoo on its morning flight. And dark morph warburg's eagle. They have a nest not too... Oh, you went behind a tree, sorry, Sebastian. Yeah, they have a nest not too far away from here. It's not the same ones that is close to quarantine. Now, of course, cuckoo's favorite food is caterpillars, and another creature that eats caterpillars from time to time is a scorpion. So let's go back to see what James the scorpion is up to.
Yes, I'm sure it pretty much would eat a caterpillar. There's a very nice picture being created there by John Dree, and you can see the stinger now. It's got what looks like a very nasty stinger. It would probably feel about a bee sting kind of pain. And scorpions, certainly some of the more venomous ones, and maybe even this one, have chemicals in their venom that make you feel anxious, that give you a sort of anxious feeling. And I remember being stung by something a little bit more severe than this Europlectes species, and it was extremely painful, and I felt tremendously anxious. And it took a real effort of will to calm down afterwards. And I remember chatting to Steph about it afterwards, and him saying how they do have this sort of anxious-making chemical in their venom. Because there was no logical reason for the anxiety at all. Beautiful shots there. The stinger down the cephalothorax, the abdomen, and then the cephalothorax, and you can actually see the eyes there. See those two little black dots in the middle? Let me see if I can point them out to you. There's my little stick, and there are the eyes. See? Very good. See, Jean-Andre, I'm like a surgeon. Jean-Andre just moved his hand quite quickly because he mistook the scorpion coming out of the screen for the actual scorpion. Anyway, oh, I think it may have a burrow. Does it? No, it doesn't. I think it's had enough of us. It doesn't like us very much at all. Now you can, pretty safely pick these things up. James, as far as I'm aware, female scorpions do not kill males after mating. I imagine it's possible in some species. Mostly there's that very elaborate and rather romantic dance where he deposits some sperm on the ground, or a sperm package, and then they'll dance around it, and he will attempt to pull her over it, and in so doing she will take the sperm package into her, I suppose what you'd call opening, if you like. Let's leave him now, he's obviously a little bit irritated. And then he'll let her go, and he'll go off. In most spider species, remember that the male is about 1/10 the size sometimes of the female, so it's quite easy for her to eat him. Whereas in the scorpions, normally I think you'll find they're pretty similar sized. Magnificent. Lily, yes indeed, scorpions can do that. No, they don't lay eggs. They have their eggs in their bodies, actually, and then they give birth. It's not the same as mammals giving birth, Lily, but they do have the eggs in the body, and then they hatch. As far as I remember, and like I say, it probably varies from species to species, but the eggs hatch in the body, and then the little ones climb out, and they climb onto their mother's backs, And to find a scorpion with its babies is very, very special, because you find them sitting on top of the mother, and it's very special to watch, because of course most insects don't have any, or most invertebrates, as an animal like this which doesn't have an internal skeleton and a very small brain, most of them don't have any parental care whatsoever, but scorpions are different. Now you're looking at a dung beetle, the plum-coloured dung beetle, that is currently looking after some fairly fresh dung, probably from the elephants we've just seen. You can sit and watch dung beetle making its dung ball forever. It's a kind of meditative process. And again, as we should remind ourselves each beginning of summertime, there are various different kinds of dung beetles, probably close to 1,000 different species around the place. Not in this area, but certainly in total. And this is just one of the more common ones here. This is a dung-rolling kind of dung beetle. And that's either a male making a nuptial ball or a female making a brood ball. Most likely a male making a nuptial ball. This is very interesting. Sorry, Jandre. I think this scorpion's about to go into his home. He is. Here's his home. Sorry, I'll get back to that. He's just walked straight towards me and into his home. There's his little home. See the moon-shaped hole here? That is the scorpion's home that he was looking for. He was very close to home all the time. Isn't that cool? Anyway, back to the dung beetles. Of course, we have the nuptial ball, which is the male. He uses that to attract a female. He'll roll it off with her standing on it. They'll eat it together while well consummating their friendship and marriage. And then she will fly back to the dung, make another ball, lay an egg in the middle of it, and then go and bury that dung ball. And that's basically the summarized life cycle of the dung-rolling type of dung beetle, of which you are looking at one species there. Now, you'll probably hear that many times over the summer. That's why I've just given you a brief summary. But look at the way it's scraping off the dung with its very specialized front feet and its very specialized shovel-like face. So the front feet and the face are designed to scrape the dung off and then pack it onto the dung ball, and then the back leaves are able to push the dung ball around. And again, what is so remarkable about something like this is that nobody teaches that beetle to do this. Somewhere encoded in just 4 nucleic acids in its DNA is the message that's sent to the body that this is what it must do. The mechanism by which that happens is totally beyond my imagining. Connie, you say, why is it in such a hurry? That's a very good question. All dung beetles seem to be in a hurry. Oh, very good. They are, of course, one of the strongest animals out here. They can apparently lift around 750 to 850 times their own mass. So that dung beetle probably weighs in the region of, oh, I don't know, a gram. So, I mean, in theory, able to move something almost a kilogram. So about a pound. It's difficult to imagine that little dung beetle taking something the mass of a block of butter. Now we have a burying situation. This is very interesting. Oh, how? This is great. So this is obviously a brood ball. Now she's going to bury it. Look how this happens. Isn't it remarkable? It always looks like a totally impossible task when I watch this. Carol, the lifespan of a dung beetle is a season, and probably less. So what will happen is that I suspect that this particular egg will hatch and eat this ball and probably turn to adulthood before the end of the season. But many must make it through the dry season as either dormant adults or pupa inside this dung ball, which will harden under the ground. I don't, as far as I'm aware, think that any of them, adult-wise, make it through the dry season. I don't think they have any mechanism for getting through the dry season. Now you see that sort of dirt covering that this ball's getting. That dirt covering will turn very hard and form a very protective layer over the little eggy inside. In fact, she seems to be purposely packing dirt onto it. It's exactly what she's doing. She is in a hurry. I imagine it must be fairly uncomfortable with your face in the dirt like that, trying to shovel bits of dirt onto your dung beetle, onto your dung ball. Yes, Louise, their face is specialised to shovel dirt, but I still think it looks very uncomfortable and awkward. Yes, indeed, Maverick, there is a whole class of dung beetles known as kleptocopterids. In other words, those that steal the dung of dung beetles. And so, yes, it is quite possible that another dung beetle might come along here and steal this poor dung beetle's dung ball and make off with all the hard work that's being done here. Yes, Anna-Marie, they do indeed use the dung of all different species of animals. You'll find them on impala dung, rhino dung, elephant dung. These dung beetles tend to prefer the elephant dung or big herbivore dung. But you'll find a dung beetle for every kind of dung. You'll even find a dung beetle that will eat disgusting things like lion dung, which is, of course, one of the foulest substances on planet Earth. All right, okay, so we've covered it now in dirt and we've fallen back in. Very confused. Tireless, these things. I think they're extremely patient or extremely dim-witted because they just keep on going. They don't seem to have a great appreciation for physics. Where are you going? All right, let's go back to Leo Smith. We'll move on from our dung beetle, and Leo Smith has, his quiz to tell you about.
Yes, indeed we do. And we are trying to figure out you're trying to figure out which bird species that the pitmayfro, or the red-chested cuckoo, would parasitize. And I'm actually looking for one of them now. This is one of the best areas to see them. But I've been listening. I haven't heard any of them calling. So we're right in the Mawati River. Sarah, it is not one of the starlings, but a good guess. Your African cuckoo and European cuckoo tend to parasitize the starling species, but not the red-chested cuckoo. Also, black cuckoos have been known to parasitize starlings, but also the black cuckoos that we often find, around these river systems, they also parasitize this particular bird species. It's one of my favorites that we get here. Kathy, it is not a babbler, but a good guess. Again, a nice bird that we often see around these drainage systems. Now, what will also happen is that the host species will try their best to chase away the cuckoos, and often the cuckoos work in tandem. So one male cuckoo will try to distract while the female tries to sneak in and lay. And of course, the problem is you do have to eat, so you've got to get away from your nest from time to time to get some food, and that's when the cuckoos take their chance to scoop your eggs out and lay theirs in place. Really hoping we'd hear him calling here. A pretty bird. Tally-ho. Yes, through most of South Africa, the red-chested cuckoo's favourite bird to parasitize is the Cape Robin chat. However, we do not get Cape Robin chats here, and so they do not parasitize Cape Robin chats in this area. But yes, through majority of their range, Cape Robin chat is their favourite bird to parasitize, but not here in the Sabi Sands. But Robin chat is on the right track, so I think I'll help you out. Here we go. It is the white-throated robin chat, one of my favourites. Is one of their favourites in this area, as well as the white-browed scrub robin. So there we go. So that's why we see a lot of red-chested cuckoos and black cuckoos in particular along these drainage systems, because they tend to parasitize the birds that are nesting around here. Your African cuckoos and your European cuckoos, we tend to find them more on the crests around the marulas, and of course they are then parasitizing different species. Now of course all of the different cuckoos parasitize different species, so if we find some classes or diedrichs, I've heard them calling this morning, we'll discuss what brood parasites or which hosts they tend to focus on. And we just also, it's so nice to sit in this part of the reserve at this time of the day, especially on an overcast day like this. The birds really enjoy it, and you can hear wonderful calls at this time of the morning. You can hear a batis. You can hear redback shrike, woodlands kingfisher, black-crowned chagra, but unfortunately no white-throated robin chats. So let's send you back to the Mara and Tristan with those two young male lions to see what they're going to get up to next.
Indeed, Brent, yeah, and I'm glad you're enjoying the birds this morning. It's always an interesting topic, and Brent, loves his birds, and so I'm not surprised that you've been getting quizzed on birds this morning. And it's an interesting one with that red-chested cuckoo, because as Brent mentioned, it's pretty much throughout the rest of South Africa they parasitize the Cape Robin chat more than anything else. So it's interesting that they kind of change it up when they're in that environment. Now, hyenas have pretty much all left, bar a few, so the lions have taken it very, very easy. You can see there's one or two hyenas milling about here in front of us. They're not really too kind of interested in what's going on at this stage. There's only 4 of them left that I can see of the kind of 20 that we're here, so I don't think we're going to see too much more in terms of lion-hyena interaction. I'm pretty sure once the hyenas realize the lions are still here, you might find they're going to back off again, unless of course a big fight ensues, and then you'll find all those hyenas will turn and come back again and will start kind of causing havoc once more. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see just the hyenas slowly drift away, much like we've seen with all the rest of them, and kind of go back southwards. Now, interestingly enough, they are heading south, which means that they must be members of the North Clan, because the Olololo clan would have gone northwards. They wouldn't have gone further south down towards the sort of North Clan Den area. So I'm pretty sure most of these are North Clan members. I must applaud Jamie in the fact that she actually knows these hyenas as well as she does. I suppose she did spend a lot of time with them, but it is a lot of hyenas to remember and to try and be able to ID, and how she does all of them, I'm not quite sure. It's quite something to be able to memorize and remember all these different kind of spot patterns. So she's done a sterling effort to know the North Clan as well as she has, and I've been trying to kind of read up on them and try and kind of learn some of their spot patterns, but I just don't get them as easily as I get other things. I find lions and leopard a lot easier to identify than something like hyenas. But anyway, we're going to give it a bash. We're going to try and see as if we can learn the North Clan as well as we can. Like I say, we'll just call on Jamie when we need a bit of help. If we're not sure what's going on, she'll hopefully be able to help us out and tell us what's happening. But so far, and you can see the hyenas want to come closer, but with 2 male lions around, I suppose they've just thought, well, not worth the risk. I would imagine, though, this evening they're going to come back again, so our sunset safari might be a perfect time to actually come back. Now, I'm sorry if you hear rustling. It's all of a sudden got quite warm, so I just took my jacket off, and so I'm sorry if it made a bit of a noise. But I'm pretty sure that this evening will be kind of perfect time to come back into this area. At the end of the day, hyenas, they probably had a big interaction last night, lots of kind of back and forth and fighting, and now they're going to go rest as the sun comes up. As soon as they kind of have rested, they'll come back again. And what's interesting is actually, if you look, there's this kind of little muddy path that comes down here, and you can tell that this has been a whole bunch of activity. That is all just one big hyena track, essentially. All those little round marks are toes, but essentially that is all hyena tracks going up and down. And so I'm 99% sure that the hyenas were the ones that actually went after this buffalo and brought it down. The lions have then kind of scavenged off them. And it does happen like that when you get areas where you get lots of big clans around. You will find that hyenas will almost become the apex predator in many respects and be able to hunt a lot for themselves, and then lions actually scavenge off them just like they would scavenge off lions in areas with lower density of hyenas. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic that you have here, and you hear it a lot here in the Mara with hyenas hunting. I mean, you see it a lot as well, is that they go after all kinds of things. They're quite an incredible kind of hunting unit when they get going. Can be quite savage to watch, but incredibly interesting in the way that they go about it. I suppose it's much like wild dogs in many respects, except these guys just have that much more stamina to be able to just keep going and going and going and going, and also then the power that they have. You know, they weigh a little bit more than what the dogs do. And they're a little bit more brawny, and so they have this ability to even wrestle with things like a buffalo that they've managed to pull down. Now, it looks like one of our other lions is going to come feed. Are you going to come and have a little snack, boy? Quite enjoy watching the lions kind of coming down towards this carcass. They kind of have to look very quizzically as how to get down, and then it's this kind of game of trying to work out where is the best place to actually descend towards this carcass. There's a nice little bank that they've got there, and this particular male has been intriguing. He's been the one that's moved around the most this morning and has investigated everywhere. He's been sniffing and smelling, and went for a little drink just now. He's been eating grass. He's been all over the place and seems to have a bit of curiosity about him. I wonder what he's kind of picking up that he's trying to work out now. We're going to try to see if he can get down. The carcass is right below him there, so he should be able to get. If he just stands on the carcass, it should be okay. Let's have a look. Just stand on the carcass, boy. You don't have to get muddy then. So funny, because if this was hyenas feeding, you'd find that they would just be in there. They wouldn't care at all that they get muddy. Whereas you can see the lions are a little bit more kind of wary of getting their manes dirty. Boy, what, you're going to jump across. Oh, that was cool. Nice, James. Well done. I might find the two of them go and rub up on each other and just bond again. I don't think they're really that happy to be feeding down in there, and so also they've got quite full bellies, and I suppose that's maybe why it's not really a priority to actually be on the carcass, and they're more just kind of investigating if there's any little bits that they can feed on without getting themselves too dirty. And I would just imagine that eventually, though, the hunger that will come later, they'll try and get it, and I'm pretty sure they're going to try and drag it out. The problem that they have is that because of all the commotion that's probably happened here with the hyenas trying to hunt this particular buffalo, and lots of boys, he might find him pretend to mate with the other male. They do it when they're younger. Does happen from time to time. But what I was going to say is that when they try and kind of drag it out, the problem is all the commotion that's happened is that these banks have now become completely slippery and full of mud, and so it's going to be very difficult to get the traction and purchase to be able to drag a heavy carcass like a buffalo out of this ditch, and so they might have to wait for it to be a little lighter before they actually do anything. I don't know where the other male's gone. No, he's gone behind the car there, so he'll come back just now. Jason, no, never an adult hippo. I've seen lions feeding on adult hippos, but generally hippos that have succumbed to injuries from other hippos in a fight, but I've never seen lions take on a fully grown adult. I've heard of sub-adults, young ones being taken by lions, and seen a young one taken by lions before, but never a fully grown adult hippo. I mean, that's a big animal for anybody to take and for anyone to kind of go after. You'll find even things like hyenas would be very, very wary. Now, the lions are going to disappear behind the cars. Of course, they're going to do that. They're going to, even now, because we've moved into the right place, they're going to kind of move off behind everything, unfortunately. No good. But this might be the gap that the hyenas need. Those that have been moving around in this area, they might now be able to kind of come down and start to sort of feed and maybe get a chance to get in there if the lions are away. Now, Miranda, how will they clean themselves? Well, quite simple, Miranda. With lions, they've got a very rough tongue, as we know, and so they'll just groom themselves and they'll groom each other, and basically as they're grooming, so those rough tongues will pull all that mud off, and you'll be surprised how quickly they clean themselves. From muddy like that to clean, it's quite a quick process. It doesn't take long at all, and then you'll find that they'll be nice and clean and they won't have to worry too much about the kind of mud that's on them. It's quite interesting because we once had the sausage tree male, or one of the young sausage tree males, when they were still with the pride, and they killed that buffalo. I mean, we've seen a bit of footage of it, but they've of them kind of riding the buffalo down, and they ended up getting completely covered in mud, and he was almost black from head to toe. In fact, I've actually got a photo of him somewhere here. I'll try and find it quickly so that I can show you. But he ended up kind of being sort of very dark in coloration, and unfortunately looked as though he was never going to get clean. But actually it was maybe 10 minutes later and he had kind of joined up with another lion, and between the two of them they were able to clean him. So James, is that close enough for you, or is it going to be a little bit far? Or, I mean, a little bit too close, should I say. But anyway, this is the photo that I was talking about. Sorry if my screen's a bit dirty with all the light. I don't know if you can see it there. Can you see it, James? Not really, no. Okay, let's move it a little bit towards the dashboard, because otherwise the light is going to be terrible. All you can see is my little fingerprints. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's try now. Can we see better now? There we go, that's a bit better. But you can see there he was covered in mud like that, and that lion in 10 minutes looked as though he was normal again. He just managed to clean off all that dark stuff just by grooming himself and having another one groom him. So they do clean themselves quite quickly. It's an advantage of having a nice rough tongue, is to be able to get yourself nice and clean again when you're full of mud and all kinds of other nonsense. Now, those lions have gone over the road, and what's happening now is we've got two hyenas that are actually coming a little bit closer and slowly starting to kind of edge their way. I think they've realized the lions aren't too close, that they might get an opportunity to feed. So while we wait for them to come in, let's send you back across to James, and now that he's left the scorpion, I wonder what's next on his bushwalk menu.
Well, hopefully Hosanna will be next. We haven't managed to find him yet. We haven't managed to find any tracks of his yet. And it's very interesting to think what has happened to him and where he's gone. Obviously, he had a bit of a contretemps with the lions yesterday, and we don't know if he hasn't perhaps lost the end of his tail. It's going to be important for us to see him soon. He is fine. Everyone saw him. And for those of you who weren't perhaps watching, the tracks indicated, and the little bit of fur that Jamie found indicated yesterday, that he'd had a fight with some lions and a narrow escape. But we do know that he's okay. Bob, most likely the Nkuhuma Pride. This is the heart of their territory, and they were on the property yesterday. So I think the Nkuhumas. We haven't found any tracks going south towards where Hokomori was yesterday on his kill, which was on the southern boundary. But I think he's probably still in this area. This is the kind of the area he was in yesterday. There were elephants toing and froing through this block, and so he probably would have just avoided them, perhaps licking his little wounds, I say, after escaping the lions. Dreadful experience for him to have had to see the lions like that. I wouldn't like to see the lions like that at all. Let's go over to this silver cluster leaf. And many of you are saying, oh no, you hope he's all right? He is fine, I promise you, he's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with him. Well, apart from missing a small piece of his tail, there's nothing wrong with him. Very devastating if he was to fall victim to the lions at this stage of his life. Now remember, we spoke about the gall wasps yesterday and the ants that make the other interesting sort of, what should we call it, a home, I guess, on the silver cluster leaf. This is the gall wasp, and they can get a lot bigger than this. They can get about the size of a fat peach stone, if you like. And this one, I think, is not occupied, so I'm going to try and break it open. I thought I heard some elephants, but I didn't. It was a car. No. This one was stung and then left completely alone, obviously. Nothing went into it. It dug a small hole and then disappeared. Now, I don't know what these wasps look like. I would quite like to find out. In the name of science, let's open this up and see. I don't think there's anything in it. It's amazing how many things or cruelties to the natural world have been excused by saying, let's, or in the name of science. You can hear some kingfishers shouting. There are two of them chasing each other. Jean-Andre didn't want to show them to you because it was too difficult to film in the light. I mean, it's too difficult to film in the light. You wouldn't. What I mean is you won't get a nice picture of them. Okay, let's open this thing up. Herbert's just indicating that he has found some tracks and they're going north, which is good. Squeaky knife, says Louise. Yes, well, this knife was given to me by a person who used to be, an affectionate friend of mine, sometimes known as the honey badger. She wasn't very affectionate to many others. Many years ago, in my first year in the bush, I was given this knife. It's fairly useless for defence or anything else like that, but it's quite good at opening up galls. Quite good, I say. One doesn't want to open up one's fingers at the same time. And it's a fairly crude tool. We're sort of getting somewhere. Sorry about this, everybody. I'm not very good at it. Give me a sec. Let me just give it a knock. Ah, there we go. Yes, there's an old, what looks like an old egg in here. There. You can see the old egg of the gall wasp. I say old because this is from, I mean, it's a season or two. I thought it looked about a season or two old, unless this thing was about to hatch and I've now ruined its life. Oh, gosh. Apparently all you could see was my fingernails and you couldn't see the egg. Well, the egg's still there, don't worry. Can you see the egg now? There? Yes? Okay, so I may well have just ruined this thing's brief existence, but that is the egg inside here, and perhaps it would have hatched and eaten away the inside and then gone on to become an adult wasp. I'd like to think maybe that this was an old one and that I haven't done that. I don't think that's necessarily true, but at least in the name of science we have discovered precisely what the egg looks like. It's a pity we don't have the microscope with us. Be very interesting to see. Anyway, the egg of a gall wasp in a silver cluster leaf. There you are. Maybe I should put it in my pocket, except it'll just get lost there. I'm going to put it back here. Something will eat it. Sorry, little wops. Life's full of injustices, as you unfortunately will not find out anymore. All right, let's... Okay, we're going to carry on across the road here towards where Herbert seems to have found some tracks. Oh, Laura Moore, you say I should cover that thing with tape and that will make it all better. I think once I'd broken it off the tree, actually, thoughtlessly, I had already ruined its existence. Thankfully, there are lots of them around. Okay, Graham Leo Smith apparently has got off the Game Drive channel. Let's hope he's found something interesting on it.
Well, we are looking for any sign of the beloved Thandi, and so far no sign, but this bad light and a little bit of rain we've had, we need to go a little bit slower than we normally would while looking for tracks, just to make sure we don't miss anything. And I'm hoping we might find some birds. So we saw the red-chested cuckoo down by the river, and we're now going to see if we can find a European or African cuckoo up amongst the marulas on the crest where they like to hang out. And of course, the African cuckoo's call. What does an African cuckoo say, Sebastian? Do you know? Cuckoo! 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 It says cuckoo. It tells you what it is. Hopefully we'll hear one calling just now, and you can hear it as well. And the European cuckoos are silent in Africa. However, when they are in the south of France and in all over Europe, do you know what they say, Sebastian? Cuckoo! Yay! Cuckoo! Cuckoo! Yes, they also tell you what they are. But they are silent in Africa. So if you see a large grey cuckoo calling, it is without a doubt an African cuckoo. Okay, so always a good spot to check here. Central junction with the Cheetah Cut Line. And there's a veritable highway for cats. Let's check carefully now. Just some hyena tracks. Shamsung would like to know if a cuckoo is raised by a white-throated robin chat, for example, and how do they then know to then become a brood parasite and take over other birds' nests? Well, Shamsung, or is it nature or nurture? It's definitely nature. It's completely instinctive. They have evolved that ability to just know, you know what? I'd rather make myself fat on caterpillars and let someone else do all the hard work and raise the babies. And that's what they do. And it doesn't matter how the nurture happened, whether they were raised by a white-browed scrub robin, oh, excuse me, or a Cape wagtail. They do know that they must, well, they don't have to, I suppose they could build their own nests, but I mean, that's many hundreds of thousands, even millions of years of evolution that has brought them to that stage where they will take over other animals' nests. Well, we have a little creche of impala babies running away from us. Still a little bit nervy. I haven't quite got used to the cars like the adults yet. Yeah, the little ones, they are so cute, all legs. It's always a wonderful time of the year when the baby impala are around, especially as they get a little bit older and they start getting playful and you see them chasing each other around in circles, and also when you get to listen to mom talking. And of course, for those of you who haven't heard impala moms talking to the babies yet, you're in for a treat. And they basically talk in burps, burp, 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 to each other. Precocial little ones. Now it is incredible. You can see how small and how almost, I suppose, vulnerable the little impala lambs are. And that such a huge percentage of them survive to adulthood with the amount of predators we have is testament to the evolution of impala. 1.7 million years completely unchanged. It is just such a successful design, it hasn't needed any tweaking. Oh, shame he's not looking too good, is he? There's some ribs showing on that young male. But with the rain coming, hopefully the condition will pick up. Okay, impararas. Let us go look for something that likes to eat you, like a leopard. Of course, I'm searching for any sign of Tandi or Tlalamba in this area. Hopefully we get some luck. In the meantime, James has already found a leopard.
Yes, we have a leopard tortoise here, the old leopard, and then a leopard tortoise. We have found Joker, that old chestnut, used again by Leo Smith. Well done, Brent. All right, I'm just settling in next to my friend Timothy to the tortoise here. And what I want to tell you about Timothy to the tortoise today is about his scoots and aging him. I'm not going to go into the general biology because we've done that 1,000 times. But, you know, we'll do it again. But let's just have a look at the rings on his scoots. So these scoots here, or these bits and pieces or the pieces of which his shell is made, his carapace is made, have got layers. And they've got various rings on them, and there were many people who will tell you that you can tell the age of a tortoise by counting the rings, because they lay down the rings concentrically, and the thought was, of course, that they do this every year. They don't. That's not actually true. What they do, however, what you can tell is when the tortoise has been nutritionally in difficulty or deficient, and when it's had a really good year. So if you come down over here, if you wouldn't mind, Jondry, if you wouldn't mind coming a little closer, would that be possible? Can you see close? Which scoot can you see? Can you see the scoot over here? All right. So if you look where my piece of grass is pointing, this is a very recalcitrant piece of grass. I shall call it Brent. Recalcitrant means unmanageable, by the way. You can see this scoot here. That's quite thick. And that was a good time for this tortoise. And if you move down, you can see the next one, or this one here, is about half the width. And that means that when this particular growth spurt took place, it had a much tougher time. So there was much less to eat, perhaps. Here was another good time over there. If you look at this one here, Jondry, you see where my grass is pointing? Where Brent, the grass is pointing? So that was another good time. Now, it might lay, I believe, sometimes more than one ring in a year and sometimes no rings in a year. So you can't actually tell from the rings how old this tortoise is. I'm going to guess that this tortoise, which is not too far off as big as they get in this particular area, is probably pushing 50 years or so. Maybe that many, but it might be much younger than that. Let's say, I think 50 is actually probably quite excessive. Let's probably say around 20. Now, you can also see that his shell has cracked. He has been the victim of an attack. You see that? Now, that was most likely being stood on by something, or an attack from a bird like a ground hornbill. I just would be surprised if he'd managed to escape unscathed from a ground hornbill if the hornbill had actually found him. But there's definitely a crack there, so he's had a rough time. And there's another healed crack over here. In fact, he's had a very rough time of it. You see there, Jandre? Nasty, nasty crack that's healed. And I actually think he's got another one this side as well. Both of them over the foot. I don't think he can retract this foot anymore. I think that foot is unfortunately unable to retract because of the damage here. I think he would pull it in if he could. Shame. Poor little fellow. Louise says, do I think it was all from the same attack? It's quite possible. Could easily have been lions, you know, cubs knocking him around, playing him, biting, trying to get in there, and then giving up and leaving him. But he certainly hasn't had an easy time of it, this tortoise. I'm just looking at him, thinking about his age again, and realizing that I actually have no business trying to estimate his age. I really don't know how old he is. He's not a youngster, though, because they don't get a huge amount bigger than this in this area. Some parts of South Africa, they'll get at least 3 times the size. Same species. So that is the leopard tortoise, everybody. Evermore known as the tortoise because of Lauren. Well, Well, Bright Night, the shell has repaired itself to a certain extent. It would never return to its former glory, so I don't think it'll ever fully heal, no. But it will kind of close up. I mean, we could try and sort of flip him over and have a look, but that would be cruel. I don't think we're going to do that. But clearly there's some lasting damage because, like I say, I'm pretty sure that that foot would be retracted if it could be. I don't think he's retracted it because he's just kind of wedged himself there. I think it just cannot be moved into the shell anymore. Poor little fellow. Anyway, you've done a lot better than many out here. Most don't survive past the first few minutes. I just think of that wasp. All right, we had some guinea fowl alarming down here. We'll go and see if we can follow up. Maybe Horsana is in this area. Tristan has not left his lions yet. He is still with them, and I don't know if the hyenas have managed to steal anything yet.
Well, it's not because we didn't want to. Unfortunately, we got boxed in by about 4 million cars, and so we've unfortunately had to sit and wait and give it a bit of a kind of chance, and now things have slowly started to move off. And the reason why we had so many cars is because the two boys decided that the road was where they were going to lie down, and so they blocked everybody from going anywhere. They've now gotten up and moved off a little bit. They chased a couple of hyenas away and decided to sort of find a spot to rest, and they found probably the smallest little bit of shade that they possibly could. There's some of the hyenas that they chased away just now. And they're still sitting there kind of milling about as hyenas do. And like I say, I don't think much is going to happen during the course of the day today, but I think this evening will be a great place to come and spend time. So when David's on later this afternoon, I'm pretty sure he'll come past here at some point. And I think as night falls, it should get quite busy in terms of hyenas and lions, and hopefully there'll be a bit of interaction between them. I would imagine there would be, given, like I said, there's still a lot of meat on that carcass. They're only really just taken the insides out and eaten the hip, and so it's got a lot to play for still with these guys. But it's a really epic morning to spend time with them. It was a kind of beautiful, beautiful start to the day with the sunrise, and then the perfect kind of backdrop for these guys to have a bit of a game with the hyenas. I mean, it never got into anything too serious with them, but there was definitely a sort of, you can see now they're tired, they're going to sleep now. I'm sure hyenas will keep them awake, though, for the most part of the day. Every now and then they'll kind of come in and try and get their way towards the carcass, which will require one of the lions to start chasing them away and trying to kind of keep them at bay. You can see that hyena's dropped down into the little gully and is going to try and sneak its way across. No wonder if it will get anywhere close. At least it's got this sort of gully between it and the lions now, so it'll be able to get a little bit closer. But let's have a look at how far they get. So the thing is, every time we've kind of thought, well, we'll carry on because the lions are sleeping, a few hyenas rock up and they kind of try their luck and then get chased, and it goes back to a sort of sleepy standoff once again. But it's definitely not the numbers of hyenas when we first arrived. There's only sort of 3 of them that I can see now. There's 2 that are actually walking around and 1 that's sleeping in the shade, and so the numbers game is firmly in favor of the lions, and I'm pretty sure these are going to get chased away pretty quickly. As soon as the lions see them, they will chase them. They'll kind of see the hyenas moving towards their carcass, and then they'll bound their way along and snuff about and then go and find themselves somewhere to kind of rest again. Now, the interesting thing with all of this is that it's quite funny that drainage line that you see water in 2 days ago had no water in it at all. It was dry. So it's amazing how much these things fill up with just 2 kind of little storms that we've had. And I mean, they weren't major storms. We had only a little bit of rain. It's nothing like it can kind of rain here. And so just incredible how quickly these little sort of riverbed systems fill up, or lugger systems fill with water. Oh, come on, hyenas, let's see if you're brave enough to go any closer. I'm not sure that they are, if I'm honest. I think they're still quite wary of where those lions are sitting and know that getting too close can be detrimental to one's health, which I suppose is a bit of an understatement when we're talking about a sort of 180 kilogram lion that's chasing you. If you are a bit slow, you're going to not be very well by the end of it. Come on, guys. They're slowly coming closer, the hyenas. Kind of step by step they're getting there. It's always like this with hyenas. They're very, very cautious in the way that they kind of approach a carcass. If lions are around and they know lions are around, they'll walk kind of 5 steps and then they stop, and then they walk a few steps and stop, and it just goes on and on and on until they actually can get themselves close enough. But I'm 90% sure if any one of them even remotely pulls on that carcass and bites on it, these lions will be on them like a flash and chasing them away. So it's going to be a long day of back and forth for both parties, and I don't think anyone's going to get too much rest during the course of the day unless the hyenas decide to back off completely, which we know hyenas won't do. Good, but I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to carry on, and the reason why is that today is International Cheetah Day, I believe, which is a important thing to have because cheetah numbers across the world, while they have recovered from what they really were many, many years ago when it was down to basically nothing, they still aren't out of the woods yet, and there's still a lot of issues with cheetah. And I mean, even here in the Mara, the numbers have declined a little bit, and so it's a good day to celebrate. And so I'm thinking maybe we should try and see if we can go and find ourselves a spotty cat in the form of a cheetah. I'm pretty sure this is not going to do too much more, and so while I do that, let's send you back across to James, who's got one of the colourful bush shrikes.
This is amazing to see. We've got 3 grey-headed bush shrikes with their orange breasts knocking about here, making a clicking sound. I think they're juveniles and perhaps a parent. It could also be some sort of territorial display. The clicking I initially thought was was a beak snapping, but it isn't. You'll often hear them sitting just singly going. Well, these guys are kind of exercising their vocal cords and clicking. That's fascinating. I initially thought maybe they were alarm calling at something like Hosanna lying under the bush, but alas, they don't seem to be. Still fascinating to see them there. And apparently you can hear them clicking. And they don't all have the same tone either. The 3 tones. And they've gone. Fascinating stuff there. Yes, very good. Now, of course, it is International Cheetah Day, as Tristan mentioned to you. The chances of us seeing a cheetah here, of course, very small indeed. But we must pay homage to the cheetah. We have seen them on bushwalk before. Ralph Kirsten, remember him? And Herbert had a wonderful sighting of a cheetah. I forget who the camel was. The cheetah mother and her 2 youngsters. And so we pay homage to them and all the other cheetahs that we've seen here at SafariLive, and all cheetahs in general, of course, on this International Cheetah Day. Wonderful creatures that they are. I'm sad we don't see more of them here, but that's just because the habitat is not ideal cheetah habitat, of course. Oh, look behind us, Andre. We've got a flowering plant. Now, these things are, in theory, supposed to flower around Christmas time. Well, we're not too far from Christmas now, and 1 or 2 of them have come into full, glorious, beautiful flower. That is, of course, the leopard orchid, and this one has got brown spots on the flowers. I'm not sure if you can see those, John Dree. I can't, unfortunately, get up there to fetch you one. Beautiful. I think I should try and climb this tree. I just don't think that's possible, John Dree.
I believe in you.
No, I can't climb this tree, John Dree. That'd be ridiculous.
Come on, Joe.
It's impossible. There's another one next to it, though, that I might be able to get up into. As Louise says, it's our Christmas party tomorrow. Maybe that's why they're flowering. They don't all have the brown spots. Some of them have got brown spots, some of them don't. Used to be classified as different species, now not anymore. The taxonomists are not very good at making up their minds. No, I won't get up this one either, I'm afraid, Jondry. Yeah. They're very good at climbing up trees or sitting in trees that are difficult to access. And there are actually 3 leopard orchids in this area that I know of that are flowering. There are many on the reserve that are not flowering, but these 3 are. Just before Christmas. Holiday fever grabs the Lowveld through the medium of the leopard orchid. Wonderful. Anyway, we continue on our search for the alarming guinea fowl and whatever it was that was making them alarm call. That was my link. That was my link. That was my link. Yeah. See ya.
I'm not sure what happened there, Mr. Henry, but we are still checking the sort of northeastern corner of Djuma for any sign of Tandi. We're on our way down towards Buffalo's Hook Dam at the moment. And we're just going very slowly as the roads are very hard and tracks can be quite difficult to see. But I actually quite enjoy this weather at the moment. It's not cold, it's not hot. There's so many birds around. I was talking to Sebastian now about it. It's such a good bird watching morning, but it's a really bad camera bird watching morning because of the grey sky. It's quite difficult to pick out the colours and stuff in them. But on these cool, sort of slightly misty mornings like this, you do see a whole host of species. So I think what we're going to try to do is if we don't find any leopard tracks, we'll do a bit of birding. As you guys know, I'm very fond of a bit of birding. Tristan and I are planning one of these mornings. We'll have a Mara versus Djuma bird competition. Copy, confirm, Orbs, do you have it or just in Nkonzo? Excitement. Okay, copy, confirm, I must just come down central. Copy, thanks Orbs, I'm on my way. I'm at Buffalo's Hook. So, Tlalamba has been found and tracks of Tandi. Thank you. And tracks of Tandi are also in the area, so it looks like they've been together. And it's just to the south of where we were checking. So, this is where it's going to be the fastest. So Tandi has been with Tlalamba, so she hasn't completely abandoned her just yet. But that's okay. Bad roads. Oh, herd of buffalo came through here last night as well. Okay, so it's a little bit far, so I'm going to drive quite quickly to get there. So while we're doing that, let's send you back to a big fan of Tlalamba and Tandi, and that is, of course, Tristan.
Well, good luck, Brenty. Hopefully you find them, and hopefully, well, they might say, I wonder if Tandi's around as well. It'll be interesting. I'm still, I'm on the fence about what we discussed yesterday with her being possibly pregnant, but I think the more sightings we have of her, the easier it will be to tell. It's just the 2 sightings we've had, it look kind of like that. Anyway, we're sitting with hyenas. We tried to leave the lions, and these guys are all over the place here, so they haven't gone far. They're still quite close, and there was one or two that made their way back towards those lions and kind of had a bit of a standoff, and then the lions chased them and everybody lay down again as par for the course during the morning. But these guys are kind of just milling about here, and I wanted to check to see, because we're at a point in the road where there's another one of these little lugger systems, and maybe it's a place where potentially some of them are using as a den site. It's obviously, I don't think it's the case. I mean, there's no little ones running around, but we just always worth just double checking. There's definitely a few of them kind of here, and they seem to be quite interested in something. They're all kind of looking around quite a bit, and heads and ears are up, and they seem to be sort of quite intrigued by what's going on. I'm pretty sure there's also a wind that's blowing from where those lions are, so that scent of that buffalo carcass is probably being carried on the wind towards them, and that's why they kind of have their head up and the ears out and kind of sniffing and listening and doing their thing. But it is starting to get warm, so I mean, I don't know how much more kind of action we're going to get out of them. I don't think they're going to make their way back all the way to where the lions are yet. I think later this afternoon maybe, but not now. And you can see that one's gone fast asleep already. But it's amazing how many of them there are out here. It's quite something. At night, this is what you hear most out of all of the animals out here. Is you'll hear these guys making the most noise. I suppose them and the zebras. The zebras have also been quite vocal over the course of the last few nights that I've been here. There's one that's got a nice little scar on its bum. Should make it easy to identify. And it's obviously quite tricky in terms of identifying these guys, because there's no sort of central point to be able to know exactly where or who everybody is. We kind of speak to the researchers, and they help us out, and they give us all kinds of kind of ID kits that they've made themselves, and try and kind of help us figure out who is who. So it's not easy to know exactly how many or which hyenas are which. And also you must remember that just the North Clan alone is 70 individuals, and then you've got the other clans around that are up to 100, 140, some of them on the other side of the river. So there's a lot of hyenas that move around in this area, and to know all of them is I think almost an impossible task. But so the best thing to do is like what Jamie did, is to try and start to learn the main hyenas first, and then start to kind of work out from there. So Lauren, it's all the mud on them, to be honest. They do seem dark, but it's mud on most of them. You'll see that the ones that kind of arrived later, they were much lighter in color, so they had a more kind of gingery coat that we're used to when it comes to hyenas. But these guys are all quite dark from their interaction with the lions, and obviously with the buffalo as well. At the end of the day, that buffalo, I'm 90% sure was killed by the hyenas. Just given the amount of tracks in proximity to the buffalo carcass itself would indicate that it was the hyenas that brought that down, and not the lions themselves. And the lions just benefited by being in the right place at the right time, which is pretty much par for the course with a lot of things out here, is being at the right place at the right time. It's the same for us, able to find animals. But we've been lucky in the last few days. The last 3 mornings have been stellar. We've had lots and lots of lions around. It's been very, 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 very nice. Now, what we do also have is little zebras, and I was saying that they make a lot of noise. So often in the evenings, they start to come up onto the escarpment and start to make their way up towards the sort of airstrip area where it's a little bit more open, and they can then go and feed there. And unfortunately, one was caught on its way up last night, as we discussed earlier. And so a lot of them will be hunted now, given that many of the wildebeest are gone. In fact, I mean, the migration is pretty much not here anymore. There's a few wildebeest hanging about on the Tanzanian boundary, but other than that, it's pretty much just the zebras. And so that's going to be a perfect thing for the lions to be able to start hunting. It's still not as difficult to hunt as something like a buffalo, and so you'd rather go after these guys than going after buffalo just yet. But soon it will be buffalo hunting time again, which is going to be great, because when lions hunt buffalo out here, it's always quite a spectacle, because you can actually see how the lions move. Often in the Sabi Sands, when we watch these kind of amazing hunts that happen with lions, which we don't see that often these days, because the Nkuhuma Pride hasn't spent nearly as much time at Djuma as they previously did. But it's difficult there because it's thick and it's bushy, and you often can't see every member of the pride, and you can't really see what's going on. Whereas out here, watching it is incredibly interesting, because you can actually follow every single one of them. It's so open that you can kind of see how they sort of bend and shape and how they kind of move around and then chase that buffalo towards one another. It's quite an amazing thing to watch and to see how they use the terrain as well. So they'll try and chase them towards sort of areas where they know they can kind of trap them, so into things like luggers or into sort of mud wallows where they can then get around them and just keep them there. So it's an interesting thing to watch, and soon it will be that again. Soon the Sausage Tree Pride will be after those, and I'm sure once the wildebeest and zebra kind of calm down, because a lot of these zebra and wildebeest will be part of the loiter herd that goes into the conservancy areas. They used to migrate a lot further, but unfortunately now with sort of communities and stuff, they don't go as far. So that's the herd that goes kind of to the northeast of us, out of the triangle northeast, and then obviously the main migration is the one that goes south into the Serengeti. So these guys are probably, most of them are from that loiter grouping that will start heading kind of northeast out of the reserve and into the conservancies and that area, and then they stay there until, normally they're the first ones to arrive in sort of June, July. Obviously the migration is so variable in how it rolls and how it comes in that you never quite know which ones are going to arrive first and when they'll arrive. If you take our first migration series, those wildebeest were arriving already in May, whereas this year the wildebeest really only started to arrive end of July, beginning of August, and then we're here all the way until now basically. I believe about 10 days ago there was a big crossing somewhere on, I think, Main South or Main North, one of the two of them. There was a big crossing happening there. Right, we're going to keep heading southwards and try and see if we can find a spotty cat for cheetah day, and while we do that, let's send you back across to James on bushwalk.
What I'm doing is trying to find... There's some termites here. If we come down here, you can hear them clicking in alarm as I walk past. I thought maybe I was going mad, that I was hearing things, but I'm not. There are termites under here that are going krrr every time I get near. Now they've become quiet. Hello? Oh, wow. Okay, so there's obviously a little termite mound living under there. I'm going to put this thing right back where I found it. But you can also see some growth. Some sort of flower, actually, is growing out of this dung that has been kept moist and turned into, well, I suppose an incubator for plants and for fungus. There you are. Good luck, all of you. Wonderful. But there are definitely termites all over it and living in it and around it, and they're alarming. They go every time I go near their tunnels, and they've dug tunnels all over here so that they can work around this dung. Very special. And also look at these not golden, but gossamer, I suppose. No, they are gold, sort of golden wings. Theo, yes, the walk this morning is definitely being made more productive by the recent rains and a bit of heat. Now, this is one of the tragedies of the wilderness. Well, maybe this one wasn't tragic. But as I like to say at this time of the year, and many of you would have heard this before, it's one of my favourite times of the year because of the kind of celebratory mood that the bush is in. And when I say that, I mean the weavers are weaving. They're going to make new little weavers, weavelings or weavelets, whatever they are. The hornbills are finding little nesting sites, so are the rollers and that sort of thing. But one of the greatest indicators of new life is the emergence of the alates of the termites. And they come out of their mounds in this great celebration of life, and there's almost a guard of honor around the exit holes where the soldiers stand to attention like this and salute as the new royals fly past them and out, and off they go into the world to find mates and start other mounds. And of the countless millions that are released, probably 95% of them will be eaten or crash land or never find a mate or fly into a light bulb that we've put up or something like that. So the celebration becomes somewhat sad. That was the moment of silence for the fallen alates. But it is a great celebration of life, I think. I just find it quite sad that so many of them don't make it. I think it must be about 95% of them. Yes, thank you, Louise. There is always a positive spin. So many of those, of course, that die feed other animals. To scant consolation to the termite that is being eaten. I doubt it goes down the gullet of a bullfrog thinking to itself, well, at least my usefulness to this existence is going to keep this bullfrog alive a little longer. Here I go. I don't think they think like that, Louise. They probably don't think at all, actually. Andre's just navigating his way through a pile of sticks. And another one. Okay, on we go. Oh, I can hear another cuckoo calling. Possibly in commiseration with me. I'm so sad. The black cuckoo, dressed in beautiful funeral plumage of black, and is singing, I'm so sad. I'm so sad. Better snap out of this, otherwise I'll get myself into a spiral. Let's see what other cheerful things we can find around here. So it has been a very pleasant walk from the point of view of small things. You can hear the kingfishers shouting all over the place. Marco, I don't think that the reason that cuckoos choose other species is random. I think they've just evolved to choose, those specific species. Many of them, you're basically asking why it is that they choose the species that they do to parasitize. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. I suspect that some species have probably evolved to avoid cuckoos, so they have various avoidance mechanisms to make sure that they don't get parasitized by cuckoos. And, at the moment, the suite of species that they parasitize are just ones that aren't very good at avoiding them. It's the best I can do, I'm afraid. It's a very good question, though. I'm just going to have a quick look under this log, and we will put it back in place. But I don't see any scorpion that might like to bite me, so let's, instead of a scorpion, go to Brentley O'Smith and a surprise.
Here we go. There is Lalamba. Look at that lovely curved tail. Now, as I said, Aubrey said from the tracks, Thandi was with her earlier. She's moving through some quite thick stuff, so I'm going to try to keep up with her. And hold on. Try and find a way through these thickets. Oh, monkey oranges, they're so noisy and spiky and slappy and all those. Here we go. Let's get through into the clear on the other side. Well, at least we've got some spots to go along with the lions we saw earlier this morning. Lauren would like to know, apart from today's evidence, when was the last time they were seen together? I would not be able to tell you exactly, due to the fact that, we've had a lot of rain or not a lot of rain, but we've had quite a bit of rain, and they've been in an area where we don't have the greatest of signals, so we haven't spent as much time there. There we go. She looks like she's going to go up to the top of a termite mound, which is, of course, lovely for us. She does love a good termite mound, our darling little Tlalamba. There she is. She looks not too hungry. He's been eaten something. Nothing massive though. She's not walking around with a giant belly. Hello, pretty girl. See, I don't think she looks like Thandi. Much longer face. She doesn't look like she's been hit in the face with a spade, which Thandi does. Thandi's got quite a pug face. You know, much longer face. Oh, look at her. What has she spotted? No, I thought she might have spotted something. And look how the nerves on her skin are reacting when the flies are there. So that's to try keep the flies off her. Pretty girl. Indigo Girl's wondering, do I think she has a slightly longer face than Thandi? Indeed I do. I think she's got a much more elongated face than her mom. Her mom's got a bit of a pug face. So did her sister, Shadow. Oh, guys, can you believe this? I'm going to have to leave Tlalamba right now, because there is one animal that I will leave all other animals for, and they've just made an appearance. It's wild dogs, so we got to move. We'll come back later if we have time, but I just heard there's some dogs coming into Juma, so I shouldn't be too far away. So Tlalamba, I'll see you this afternoon maybe. And the reason we will leave a leopard for dogs is the fact that they move through an area so quickly. So I'm going to try and catch up with the dogs before they disappear. And in the meantime, let's send you back to Commander Bond, who's got a hyena.
Now, we've got a very fat hyena here. I don't know which hyena it is. It's definitely a member of the Juma clan. We're quite close to the den. And I thought I saw Corky as well. That's definitely not Corky. But they are fat, both hyenas that we have here, indicating that perhaps they have eaten something that did not belong to them, but could have in fact belonged to the great H. What would we call it? We just have a surname really. The great Hosanna. He needs a surname, does our little chief. Let's not dare to give him one though. Very satisfied looking hyena, that one. Anybody got any ideas who that is? Oh, goodness gracious. A wound on the back? See that? Can you pick that up, Jondri? Right, apparently we do know this is a clan male. I would have thought it was a male. And the chewed up bottom is not something that we're unfamiliar with, but that thing's got a fat belly. There has been some form of pilfering going on in this area. They've wandered off down into the riverbed here. And I wonder if Hosanna isn't somewhere around here feeling miserable because he's had his meal stolen. Yes, as Louise says, Hosanna has had a rough 2 days. Possible also that they're just lurking close to where he's killed something and hoisted into a tree. He is very good at hoisting. Now many of you identifying him as the male Tsaka. Okay, we'll go with that. I'll happily believe you. And then I'm going to show you, while we wait and see what they do, a tree that I don't know if I've shown you before, but it's the only example of this tree that I know of on this game reserve. And it is... Are you ready for it, Andre? Can you frame up something dramatic? Have you dramatically framed? The Governor's Plum, Flacotia indica. I think this is the only example of this tree on this reserve that I've seen. What I will now do is give one to the trainees and say, please go and find out what it is, because they walked straight past it and they didn't stop. And so now they are going to be in a lot of trouble. Lot of trouble. Get into big trouble if you walk past twees and don't identify them. I'm going to be in even more trouble because, of course, breaking a piece of this twee is going to be very difficult without impaling my hand. Good idea, Louise. Why don't I use my fancy knife? It's not much of a saw, but maybe it will help. Oh, 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 it's so sore and painful. Oh. There we go. The Governor's Plum is now in my possession. I don't know where these wild dogs are that Brent is speaking of, but it might be quite nice if they come running past us. I doubt they will. So we'll keep on looking around here for any sign of Hosanna. Right, on we go. Just keep an eye out in here. I might just go up this termite mound and have a look-see. Hyenas, of course, universally nervous of human beings on foot, normally, especially in the daytime. Alright, speaking of hyenas, I believe Tristan is now going to make his way to the North Clan Den to unpack what's going on there. Sounds like some very, very interesting developments indeed.
Well, we have, but we're just trying to work out where exactly the den is at this stage, because we're at the old sort of spot, but there's tracks kind of going off to our left here that I just want to quickly check, see if there's any sign of them here. I don't see any hyenas milling about. So it is quite late in the day, so it's probably not the best time to be at the den, but we get a little bit waylaid by the lions and hyenas all the way up on the other side. So just going to have a little quick scratch here. This is, you can see, a little two-track that's developed, so I wonder if they haven't just moved in a little bit. It's been a long time, obviously, since I've been at this den, so I don't really know where they are now. I would be very surprised if they had been in the exact same place. I would have thought that they would have moved, and so I'm pretty sure they have. It's just where exactly have they gone, because there's a number of tracks going in all different directions here, and so I'm not sure where exactly their new den site is, but we're going to find some sort of sign of it at some point, I'm sure. Otherwise what we'll do is we'll just get hold of the researchers and they'll be able to give us a pin as to where it actually is, which will probably be the easiest. But James said that they had moved it somewhere here the last time he saw them, so just having a look. I don't see any sign of hyenas anywhere. We just check. You can see there's little holes here. That would be a good place for a hyena to den. It's inside there. That's been dug out, and that's 99% sure that's where they've used. Now, whether they're still using this particular spot or they've moved on a little bit is debatable. So we're just going to have to just do a little bit of a loop around here. Like I said, it's not the best time, and if that is the North Clan that was up with those lions, well, then we're not going to have too much action here, I don't think, because most of them will be up that side of the world. But let's just try and go around. I see the track goes around the other side here, so let's just double check where this goes. That's not being used. Mrs. Lapwing, if Waffles is being overthrown, will Soup kill Waffles' cubs? No, probably not. I would imagine that they'd be okay and that there wouldn't be too much of a stress between them. I mean, obviously that cub's going to lose ranking and it's going to get bullied a little bit by the other cubs, but I don't think it will be killed. It would be an extreme form of aggression from Soup to do so. I suppose, anything is possible when there's takeovers, but I doubt it. It would be a very, very, very rare thing to happen. But you see now, these kind of tracks just peter out. So I don't know if this is where we're at the right place, or if this is an old den, because these tracks look like they've kind of healed up a little bit. So I'm not going to go too much further. I'm going to turn around and just go back the way we came. I think this might have been the older den from when Jamie was here, when Waffles had her little one. I think, I'm not sure, because we're just looking. It's an adventure nonetheless. We're good. James reckons we're on the right track here, so if James reckons we are, I'm going to trust him. James is very astute when it comes to knowing where everything is. He's always a good luck charm. I thoroughly enjoy spending time on the vehicle with James. He's a very, very good person and always kind of leads us to good things. So I'm going to trust his judgment and see if we get this right. The track still goes quite far, so let's see. Somewhere here there's got to be a den site. See, the track is it still going? Yes, it is still going. So I see the den site must have moved quite away from where we last saw it. So one of our Niconico viewers, how do they get the collars on the hyenas? Well, it's quite simple, really. They get a dart gun, they load it up with basically something that will make the hyenas go to sleep, shoot the dart at them, it hits them, hyena goes to sleep, they then walk up and they do all kinds of tests. They will take saliva samples normally, they normally take a few kind of samples from the anus area, the nose, and then they'll just put the collar on while the animal is sleeping. But I don't see any sign. You still think we're on the right track here, James? No, I also don't think so, because there's no sign of any movement of cars here. Now, normally if there was a den, because of the researchers coming into this area, we would see a lot more of a pronounced track, which we've lost now. We've now just got a nice pathway. So I'm going to just try and head back the way we came and just double check where we were. But I think where we were is about the right place. I just think that the hyenas aren't home this morning, which does sometimes happen. It's not always the case that den sites are active. We know that from obviously looking at our den sites that we see in Djuma. We know that sometimes they are inactive and that the hyenas are busy with other things, and that's why they're not around. But I don't think there's any sign of hyenas. I certainly haven't seen any popping their heads up, and these little cubs that are in this area are so used to the cars that they'll often just come kind of bounding out towards the road to kind of see who's just come to visit. And so I don't see any of that, and that means that I'm pretty sure that no one is home, unfortunately. But we'll keep looking around. We'll just scratch and check and see, and we'll have to do a few little loops and figure of eights, and I'll just double check that track that went back the other way just now. So I just want to do a little turn around and double check there. And so yes, back to the collar. Basically that's how it works, is that the collar then just gets put on once the animal's been darted. It then gets a reversal drug which wakes it up again, and then that's it. Collar is on, and the animal goes and does its thing. And normally those GPS collars will last for about 2 years. Anyway, good, we're going to carry on. We'll try to see if we can find this den somewhere here. While we do that though, back to James you go. Hopefully he's found some other interesting things to show you.
Well, we're actually trying to find where on earth everyone else has gone on our little walk here. There's somewhere in this bush. So we thought we'd just stop and show you this Scotia capitata bush, or the dwarf boerbean. And there are many, many ants on the dwarf boerbean, and there is actually a nest on the dwarf boerbean. And interestingly, it's a silken nest. And it's one of these nests that's made of sand, but underneath it, underneath the sandy layer, is silk. And I just want to see what's in there. It's not the ants, though. I don't think they have the capability of something like this. I think it's actually frass. I think it's a caterpillar that has managed to create itself a safe haven to pupate. So that stuff that it's made of is not in fact sand at all, but frass, which is a fancy word for dung from a caterpillar. So some sort of moth, I think, is pupating in there. But if you look at the activity of the ants here, it's just phenomenal. There are lots of different kinds of ants, none of which are familiar to me, actually. And what I suspect they're doing is looking for aphids that they can milk for honeydew, or perhaps even eat. Some of them might be preying on each other. The bigger ones might be preying on the smaller ones. But there are literally hundreds and hundreds of ants, or at least 2 different species. And I suspect probably that you can also hear all the birds calling here. You can probably hear the grey-headed bushshrikes. And there's a tawny-flanked prinia behind us. I think that's what it is. Just beautiful. Right, let's keep going along here. There's also red-backed shrike calling. Ah, wonderful. Leo Smith has come through on his promise and has found you some hounds.
Wow. Ooh, nice males there with those the white on them. Oh, no I don't. I've got no comms. Oh, hi guys. I don't know why my earpiece isn't working, but welcome. Puppies! Puppies, puppies, puppies. I'm very excited. It does look like they've already killed this morning. You can see blood on the faces and some big bellies. Seb, I have 0 comms, so you're going to have to... Let me just... Oh, yeah, maybe that's the problem. Yes. There we go. I think my comms should be back. So, not sure which pack this is just yet. And we've been chatting quite a bit to my... Yes, I can hear you now, Louise. My friend Grant. Oh, we can smell the dogs. Now, a lot of people think the smell is not so nice. I think it is the smell of excitement. Have puppies around. And at the moment, there's so much chopping and changing between the packs. There's one male who's been to, I think it was 7 different packs in the last 4 years, 5 years. So there is a lot of movement. Oh, ears are up. And you can see they've been busy this morning. So they've come through from Arethusa, but it is great to have them. Annette says they have the most beautiful coloration. Let's go to that dog at the back left there. I think that one's got my favorite coloration on it. Yes, that guy there. You can see that. And you can see where their scientific name comes from. Well, lichen, or licon, wolf, and pictus, painted on. So the painted on wolf. Of course, they are not wolves. They are very much dogs, and they are their own type of dog. So unlike other dog species that all fall under the genus Canis, they have their own species. They're separated between 1.6 and 2 million years ago from the rest of the Canis line. They have specially adapted tearing teeth, which domestic dogs lack, and they also have an extra toe. Now, they are absolutely phenomenal hunters, and a lot of their kills are very small. You don't actually really see them, so scrub hares and little stenbokkies and things like that. Now, at this time of the year, their favorite food is, of course, baby impala, and I've seen a pack of dogs go through 14 baby impala in a morning before. So baby impala beware. Now we see we've got 4 puppies here and 4 adults. So maybe you guys can help me to see which pack this is. So if we come out the 4 adults, well, the one who flopped down, who's got the really nice coloration, 1, 2, 3, 4 adults, and then 4 puppies. Hello Lily, who's 7 years old. Lily would like to know, can we tell the dogs apart from their patterns? Indeed we can, Lily, and also from behavior. So wild dogs have an alpha pair, and they are the only ones that will mate, and the rest of the pack looks after the puppies. And the puppies, probably a little bit young to still be very helpful, or not too helpful during the hunt. And there's a so hot, and even though it's a cool morning, it doesn't look like they ate too much. There's little bellies, and there we go. Thank you, James. Investec / Mbali breakaway pack. Now that male with that really nice coloration, I haven't seen him before at all. But also dogs have a relatively short lifespan, on average 6 or 7 years in the wild. They have quite a high mortality rate, and not only due to disease, obviously canine distemper and rabies being the 2 biggest threats to dogs, but also the other really big threat to dogs is lions. Lions are the mortal enemy of the African wild dog, and as some of you will know who've been watching for quite some time, we witnessed a very disturbing scene a few years ago, is when we actually had one of the Styx lions kill a wild dog puppy right in front of us. It was very traumatizing. Now, of course, it's the 2nd most endangered canid in Africa. Only the Ethiopian wolf has fewer numbers. They're estimated to be around 4,500 left in the wild throughout the whole of Africa. They used to occur in big numbers throughout the savanna and grassland biomes of Africa. And believe it or not, speaking of Ethiopian wolves in Ethiopia, there's even a population of wild dogs that occur in the Herera forest, up over 2,000 meters high in the Ethiopian highlands. There we go, you can see there's still quite a bit of blood on the face. So the adults would have let the puppies eat first, and while they would have kept guard for hyenas and lions. But I think there's a very strong chance they're going to hunt again this afternoon. They might not move too much today, but I know exactly what I'm doing this afternoon. If I'm on drive, I think I'm pretty sure I'm on drive, and that will be spending my whole afternoon with my favorite animal, the African wild dog. It was my nickname in Tanzania. My nickname because I apparently, according to my trackers and whatnot, got so excited when I saw these guys that I used to and I used to move around camp in a hurry, which wild dogs often do. They're always in a hurry. So my nickname when I was working in southern Tanzania was Mbamitu. Basically, Mbwa is a dog, Mitu is a forest, dog of the forest. Oof, look at all their ears, they've heard something. And they're always on alert. And those massive big ears are incredible at hearing things. I'm just going to move around to the other side of them so we can have a look at some of the other adults. And Michael was wondering, what is my favorite sighting or most memorable sighting with dogs at SafariLive? Oof, Michael, so many. Definitely, I would say 2 standouts are when we've had dog packs playing with elephant herds, which caused the elephants great distress. However, the dogs know they are very, very fast, and they basically tease the elephants, and the elephants get very angry and trumpet and chase and whatnot. We've had 2 really incredible wild dog elephant interactions, and those 2 probably stand out the most. One was at Treehouse Dam, and the other was on Vulture's Nest. There we go. They're difficult to pick out who the alpha pair is at the moment with the way they're lying. Once they start moving and stuff like that, it should be a little bit easier to figure out who's who in the zoo. But it does look like they've had a successful morning. I just absolutely adore the colorations on their coats. Achoo! And they've got saliva hanging out. There we go. The male that's lying flat to the right is definitely the easiest dog to identify from this pack. He's got such distinctive white on both his on his front shoulders. Oh, listen, there's a little puppy squeak. Oh, they are beautiful animals. Now, Sierra says their ears are her favorite feature of the dogs. Well, Sierra, I just love all of them. And strangely enough, I'm quite poetic as I come to the end of my time here. On my interview drive, under this very tree, on my interview drive, I had wild dogs. So, quite some time ago. But under this very brown ivory tree, I had my first ever wild dog sighting for SafariLive, and I hadn't even got the job yet. Flat puppies, and I've just been chatting to everyone. I really hope I get to see dogs before I leave a few times, and we chatted about it last night. I actually think we were talking about it. I was talking to Jeandre about it, and I've been talking to Craig about it, and Sebastian and Jamie, and everyone who would listen to me complain that I hadn't seen enough wild dogs this cycle. So it'll be very, very nice if listen. Begging, still hungry. Now, probably, as I said, they're probably going to sleep for the rest of the day. Big. Now you see a lot of the greetings and that between dogs is all around the face, little nips and nibbles, and also, of course, they beg for the adults to regurgitate food for them. And that means diseases like distemper and rabies go through a population very quickly. But very, very special to be able to spend time with these incredible carnivores. Kiwi is wondering, could wild dogs be introduced into another part of Africa where there's less competition from other predators and lots of prey for them to thrive? Kiwi, it's possible, and there's range expansion programs constantly. The best and largest range expansion project for African wild dogs is currently underway in South Africa, and the Lowveld branch is actually run by a very good friend of Tristan and mine, Grant, and it's from the EWT, the Endangered Wildlife Trust, and they actually organized a big pack of dogs to be introduced onto the reserve where my parents live. So they are busy trying to reintroduce dogs into areas where they have been wiped out. And of course, veterinary science and veterinary medicine is getting better. It is now much easier to inoculate the dogs against distemper and rabies. Before, in the past, you would actually have to dart them and inject them. Now there are pills that you can just sort of put in a little bit of mincemeat and then throw in their general direction. So there's a big inoculation program going on. Now, dogs being killed by lions and other predators, that's natural. That's part of what happens. So I know they've recently reintroduced dogs up into the northern Kruger, where they became locally extinct in the last 20 years. So Kruger used to have a very big, a very healthy population of wild dogs, but about 500 to 600 dogs, and there was a massive outbreak of canine distemper in the early 2000s and brought their population all the way down to under 100, and they are slowly recovering. The population for the park is around 200, 250 now, but they are making a recovery. And in the Sabi Sands in particular, we're seeing dogs a lot more than we did when I used to work in the Sabi Sands. We used to very seldom see dogs. If we, in a 6-week period, if we saw dogs once, it was a lot. But now there's a couple of packs that move through the Sabi Sands, and we are definitely seeing them far more regularly, which is good news. Now we have a look at those teeth there. You can actually see if you've got a dog at home, go grab it, put it on your lap, open its mouth, and have a look at their teeth, and you'll see how those molars and premolars are completely different to what you would find in your domestic dog. They are cutting, shearing teeth, and ripping teeth, which domestic dogs don't have nearly as well defined. You can see them there, or look almost like shark teeth. Now, while the dogs are resting, I'm going to stay with them till the end of drive, and of course I'm hoping that I'm on drive this afternoon, because I'll be straight back here. And in the meantime, let's go across to Tristan, to an animal I've actually seen chased by wild dogs.
Before Brenty that he managed to see dogs before he left. I know it's his favourite animal, and so it's been a long time where he's been looking for them, and I'm glad that he's had at least a decent sighting and not a fleeting one of them disappearing. But we've also got a very cool little animal that spends lots of time together in a group, and it's banded mongoose, and we don't get to see these guys all that much down in Djuma. In fact, they're very rare down there. You'll just see them scuttling off and disappearing, and most of the time with these guys you don't really get prolonged sightings of them where they'll actually sit still and kind of be visible for any lengths of time. They normally kind of trot along and go away, but this is a really big group, and they're quite relaxed actually. They've been sitting for the little time that we've been here, and they're foraging around, and I would imagine after a bit of rain it's nice and easy to dig. This area here 2 days ago was baked really hard, and it was probably quite tricky for these guys to dig in areas like this for all kinds of little food items, and so now with a bit of rain it's softened that soil up, and it makes it a lot easier for them to be able to find all kinds of little invertebrates that are inside the soil, as well as anything else that comes their way. Little scorpions would be nice, I would imagine they would like, and even little things like snakes. But you can see how they do it. They've got these long claws, and they'll dig up very quickly, and then they just use their teeth. With those big teeth they grab whatever's underneath the ground and they eat them, and they'll do this all day long until it gets to about sunset, and then from sunset time they'll start to find their way towards little burrows where they'll go down, and much like hyenas denning, these guys will have a little home that they'll go into that will use for shelter during the night, because it's not safe for a mongoose to be out at night. And I love the way that they run. They've kind of got this like bounding lope to them as they kind of trot along, and like I say, normally all we see of them is just these little bums drifting off, but if you get a relaxed grouping of them, they can be such fun to watch, because they are comical creatures. We know mongoose have lots and lots of energy, but they're also pretty amazing in terms of the way that they go about their business and to find food, and they're ferocious predators. You'll see them go after all kinds of snakes and scorpions and those kind of things, so it's always interesting to watch. And as Annette has just stated, that they are such busy little creatures that it's always fun just to spend time with them and watch them go about it. They seem to constantly be moving at fast forward. They don't really seem to sit still, do they? They're constantly kind of trotting along, and if they're not trotting, they're digging at a rate of knots. So they really are fun animals to kind of watch. I always enjoy spending time with these guys. They can be naughty if you get ones that get used to a camp and decide that that's where they want to forage. They can be a handful. They can get into all kinds of things and cause absolute havoc, but we're lucky in that we don't have those worries, and so we can just enjoy them out in the bush, where they are highly entertaining to watch and to see go about the way that they do things. Very, very cool. Anyway, we're going to carry on. We're going to go see what else we can find during the course of our day. While we do that though, let's send you back across to Brenty so he can wrap things up with his wild dogs.
very, very, very happy to spend some time with puppies this morning. And it is absolutely awesome to have them back on Juma, and the fact that they've gone flat at this time of the morning means they're almost certainly going to be on Juma this afternoon. So I'm pretty sure I'm on drive. If I'm not, I might make sure I'm on drive so I can spend some time with my favorite creatures. Very, very special. I almost want to do a woo call. Enjoy. Woo, woo, woo. Now, of course, that's the contact call. Oh, I confused a little one. No, I didn't. He just sat up. There we go. You can look at those teeth again. Very, very distinct. They've actually got more teeth than a domestic dog as well. Such exquisite animals. Biggest pack I've ever seen was just under 38 dogs. When dog packs generally get to that size, when they get over 20, 25, they tend to split because they eat a lot and they have very high metabolisms, meaning they need to hunt normally twice a day, every day. And it means that that's a lot of mouths to feed, so they're generally split into smaller groups. There are records of packs of over 60 in the Serengeti in the 20s and 30s. So they used to be in very big packs, and obviously that makes sense in an area where you have all those wildebeest. Very, very few wild dogs left in the Serengeti Mara system now, and hopefully they do make a comeback. But anyway, what a wonderful way to end today's safari with the painted dog, or painted wolf. And I'm ecstatic. And just for all of those out there who know me well and have been watching me well, I'm going to end the drive with a single word, but you're going to have to wait a little to hear it. And you can see they're still alert, ears are up. And of course it pays to be alert. Nkuhumas are not too far from here, probably 2 k's, 2.5 k's. But what a wonderful morning. Dogs and cats. And for the leopard lovers, I do apologize that we ran away from Tlalamba so quickly, but I couldn't resist these beautiful creatures. And hopefully they're going to give us lots of joy this afternoon. And are you ready for it? It's coming.